Chapter 671. The 5 Yuanying stage ancestors, almost in unison, each took a handful of formation flags and instantly threw them into the sea. The 5 of them simultaneously injected their spiritual power. The moment the 5 formation flags touched the surface of the sea, in an instant, the sea within a radius of 100 miles was directly surrounded by thick fog. The sea, which originally had some waves, suddenly calmed down, and there were no longer any waves rolling. Yang Chen, who was looking for a chance to escape, suddenly felt that the speed had suddenly slowed down, and his heart was slightly shocked. His spiritual awareness immediately discovered that the surrounding seawater seemed to have suddenly turned into ice, and the entire shuttle was frozen in it. Although the shuttle could still maintain a certain speed in the ice, it could no longer reach half of the initial speed. At this point, Yang Chen no longer had the possibility of escaping. Although this formation was not very lethal, even if Yang Chen used the sea-pouring jasper cup, it was impossible to escape from the formation. In order to trap Yang Chen, the Taishaman took great pains this time, and even specially refined this set of sea-sealing flags. The sudden change made Yang Chen shocked. The shuttle was put away, and people had already appeared in the sea. The flame of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire instantly wrapped his whole body, and he quickly flew towards the sea. Although the current yin-yang heaven-burning fire was still very weak, this degree of freezing could not compete with the yin-yang heaven-burning fire at all. The other party just cut off the possibility of his escape, and the real trump card was still the 5 water spirit root Yuanying stage ancestors. As soon as he came out of the sailboat, Yang Chen found the figures of the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors. The reason why he flew to the sea was that he knew that in the sea, unless he used the bloody river, he was not the opponent of the 5 water attribute Yuanying stage ancestors. In the air, there might be a fight. For Yang Chen's plan, the 6 Yuanying stage ancestors who were chasing him did not care at all. In their view, 6 against 1 was already a great advantage. This was not considering that the 6 of them were collectively higher than Yang Chen. There was no possibility of failure to deal with a little guy who had just condensed his core for 20 or 30 years. This time, the calculation was thorough, and the combat effectiveness of Yang Chen and the magic weapon owned by the Taishaman were calculated. The shuttle was now scrapped. Yang Chen originally had a wood attribute flying sword, which killed the old devil Lin Changhe, but it was not compatible with his own attribute, and the power would not be too great. Gao Yu refined a bright ray sword for Yang Chen, which was the best flying sword for Yang Chen now, but compared to the 3 life source magic weapons of Lu Wei and the Yuanying stage ancestors, it was nothing at all. The reason why there were only 3 life source magic weapons was that 3 of them lost their life source flying swords near the Pure Yang Palace last time and have not been found. Yuanying stage ancestors' magic weapons were Yang Chen could not find them of Yang of. Apart from that, Yang Chen had no more combat magic weapons. At least these Yuanying stage masters of the Taishaman thought so. Moreover, Yang Chen's current unreasonably strong body was estimated to be caused by some kind of lousy body refining technique. A body refining technique that could change the body shape like this, how advanced could it be? It was no wonder that Yang Chen had always given people the feeling that he would not easily make a move. Therefore, the enemies who really understood Yang Chen's power had already died. These people who judged Yang Chen's magic weapon based on accurate information were bound to make mistake. Yang Chen's figure soon reached the surface of the sea. On the sea, the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors each occupied a direction and surrounded Yang Chen in the middle, but they were not in a hurry to make a move. The role of the sea calming flag array was not only to freeze the ocean, but also to freeze the speed of Yang Chen within the range of the flag array. The clothes of the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors had countless talismans that could offset the shackles of the flag array, but Yang Chen did not have this kind of clothes, so he could only be restrained by the array. Yang Chen, I will give you a chance. My sect is thirsty for talents. As long as you surrender, we will not do anything to you. The strong Yuanying stage man standing on the sailboat and flying in the air looked at Yang Chen appearing in the encirclement and said coldly, "Less nonsense." Yang Chen screamed, but his eyes were fixed on the 5 people around him, as if he was afraid that they would suddenly make a move. "If you don't want face, then go to hell." The strong man's face did not even change. It seemed that he had already expected Yang Chen to say this. The persuasion just now was just a routine. He did not intend to let Yang Chen live at all. The 5 Yuanying stage ancestors on the sea seemed to have received an order, and the 5 flying swords uniformly attacked Yang Chen in the middle. Yang Chen did not dare to be arrogant. With a move of his mind, the golden bell almost penetrated his body, condensed outside his body, and tightly protected Yang Chen. Just in the blink of an eye, the 5 flying swords had already cut on the golden bell. Buzz, a heavy bell sound came from the golden bell and sounded leisurely beside Yang Chen. To Yang Chen's surprise, the situation where the few guys who besieged him were shocked by the golden bell did not happen. The 5 flags suddenly trembled at the moment when the bell sounded, and an invisible barrier directly protected the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors. The frozen sea under Yang Chen's feet suddenly turned into ice powder, and a thick layer was directly shattered by the bell sound. However, the trembling of the flag has not stopped, and the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors have not been hurt at all, as if all the bell attacks have been converted to the ice by the flag. The shuttle and the golden bell, the 2 magic weapons that had been tried and tested hundreds of times, unexpectedly all had problems today. It had to be said that the other party's preparation was really thorough, which made Yang Chen very surprised. However, what was even more surprising was the enemy of Yang Chen. The power of the sea suppression flag array, they knew better than anyone. The array that the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors could drive together almost collapsed under the bell sound of Yang Chen. If it weren't for the fact that everyone immediately stabilized their position, maybe the array would have been broken by Yang Chen. Even the burly man who had been staying on the sailboat had a shocked expression on his face. The sailboat itself had the power of protection, but when the bell rang, he almost couldn't control the sailboat. What the hell was this golden bell? It was so powerful. The flying sword of the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors could not hurt Yang Chen. There was a hint of greed in the eyes of the strong man. Such a magic weapon, if it was his own life source magic weapon, how good would that be? This array was really annoying several times in a row, so that Yang Chen was very dissatisfied with this sea suppression flag array. Without thinking about it, he immediately stimulated his spiritual power, and the bell sounded again, spreading in all directions. Yang Chen did not believe that the other party's array could be so powerful that it could resist the attack of the bell. They did not expect that Yang Chen would have such a powerful attack. The 5 Yuanying stage ancestors did not care about attacking Yang Chen, and fully mobilized their spiritual power to defend. Although Yang Chen's bell attack was fierce, it consumed spiritual power. With the 5 people working together, even if they were tired, they could also make Yang Chen tired. Chapter 672. It had to be said that this formation was very suitable for besieging people. Especially in the ocean, it was also driven by 5 Yuanying stage masters with water spirit root. Even if Yang Chen's golden bell was more damaging to the spiritual awareness, almost all of the attack of the bell was absorbed by the formation. Within the scope of the Nuwa formation, there were broken ice everywhere, but the 5 people were not hurt at all. From the perspective of spiritual power alone, the 5 Yuanying stage masters have far exceeded the level of spiritual power of Yang Chen. What's more, when it comes to the realm, they are all higher than Yang Chen. In a confrontation of this level, the formation formed by the 5 of them firmly held the upper hand. However, it did not mean that Yang Chen was completely powerless. After all, the Golden Bell was a fine product from the treasure house of the Dragon Palace, and it was not ordinary. Although the 5 people relied on the formation to block the bell attack of Yang Chen, they were no longer able to attack, and the 2 sides were in a stalemate. It wasn't that the 5 people didn't want to attack, but someone among them was a little distracted, and they were immediately hit by the pervasive bell. Just a little bit out of the protection of the formation, they immediately tasted the feeling of almost having their souls severely damaged. Under the great shock, who dared to be distracted again? The formation restrained all the attacks of the bell, so the brawny man on the sailboat outside the formation did not suffer any damage. From the beginning of the attack, he controlled the sailboat to fly into the air. He was the commander-in-chief of this attack, but seeing that the 5 Yuanying stage masters and a sea-sealing flag array could not do anything to Yang Chen, a little jet on stage junior, he couldn't help but frown. Outside the formation, the brawny man could certainly see that Yang Chen didn't know where he got a golden bell magic weapon that they didn't know in advance. It had a strong attack power, and now he was in a stalemate with the 5 people, and the 2 sides could not do anything to each other. Seeing this situation happen, the brawny man certainly would not tolerate it. The 6 Yuanying stage ancestors had to work so hard to deal with a jet-on stage master. Although it was said that Yang Chen could only be trapped by the formation and he could not escape, even killing Yang Chen required the assistance of the formation, and if it could not be done, then it would be a shame. The moment he furrowed his brows, a flying sword appeared beside him. In the blink of an eye, the flying sword silently slashed towards Yang Chen, who was in the middle of the formation. Yang Chen was currently dealing with the siege of 5 people, so he definitely couldn't withstand another person's sudden attack. The flying sword flew very fast. With a whoosh, it arrived above Yang Chen's head. However, Yang Chen in the formation seemed to have expected it, and there was a flying sword in his hand, which was the bright ray sword that everyone knew. What was strange was that Yang Chen did not use his flying sword to defend himself. Instead, he held the flying sword in his hand. When the flying sword of the brawny man approached, Yang Chen waved his sword to block. Ding, buzz, there was a soft sound. It was the sound of Yang Chen waving his sword to block the flying sword of the brawny man, and the buzzing sound was when Yang Chen received the attack of the other party's flying sword. At the same time, his spiritual power surged and the golden bell in his body rang. The bell sounded just at the moment when Yang Chen's bright ray sword and the flying sword of the brawny man met. The melodious bell sound directly passed to the ears of the brawny man through the intersection of the 2 swords. If the brawny man had been outside the formation, in a short time, Yang Chen really couldn't do anything to him. However, he couldn't wait at this time and took the initiative to launch an attack. It was simply a stupid thing to use the spiritual awareness to control the sword in the attack range of Yang Chen's bell. Boom! The brawny man only felt that the moment when the 2 swords intersected, his mind seemed to suddenly explode a huge bomb, and his mind was blank. The flying sword lost control when the bell sounded and fell directly into the formation. The brawny man was on the sailboat, but he seemed to have fallen into a coma. For a while, he could no longer control the sailboat and the wings. The 2 magic weapons lost the control of their owners and began to slowly fall from the air. The 5 Yuanying stage cultivators in the sea-sealing flag array were shocked. While trying their best to maintain the formation to resist Yang Chen's attack, they couldn't help but scold the stupidity of the brawny man. In this situation where the number of people and the realm were superior, he still wanted to intervene at will. If he didn't figure out the situation, he would end up like this. There was no way, although a few of them relied on the power of the formation to block the attack of the golden bell, they could only do their best, and there was no spare power to inform the brawny man. With a wrong judgment, the brawny man paid a heavy price. However, the attack of the brawny man was not without any effect. By the time Yang Chen resisted the flying sword of the brawny man, the 5 flags of the sea-sealing flag array had shrunk a lot toward the center of the crowd. The scope of the array map was also reduced by more than half. The shrinking of the scope of the array map meant an increase in power and a decrease in control power for the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors, but for Yang Chen, it was not so wonderful. The most important thing was that after the defense of the formation was enhanced, he could already start to fight back. The attack of the Golden Bell had been completely bound in the formation, and even the ice under his feet could only be broken in a small area. There was no way, now Yang Chun couldn't go deep into the sacrificial refining of the Golden Bell, and he couldn't effectively improve the attack of the Golden Bell. There was only this single method. Fortunately, the powerful body protection function of the Golden Bell, even if Yang Chun was attacked in the formation, it only made Yang Chun retreat for a while, but his body would not be injured. If he controlled it well, Yang Chun could also use the other party's attack to shake the Golden Bell to fight back. However, the other party soon discovered this, and his attacks became more unpredictable. They would never make a move at the same time to give Yang Chun the greatest counterattack. Everyone took advantage of the counterattack of the Golden Bell driven by the attack of their companions to attack Yang Chun. The Golden Bell fully protected Yang Chun, and the sound was not as powerful as it was at the beginning. Seeing that this method worked, the 5 people were happy for a while, and regardless of the sailboat in the sky that was slowly falling, they fully controlled the formation flag, while mobilizing the formation to attack Yang Chun, while shrinking the scope of the formation. The formation was getting smaller and smaller, and it had been concentrated within 100 feet. The distance between the 5 people was getting closer and closer, but the power of the formation was getting greater and greater. Inadvertently, Yang Chun had been unable to fight back, and the Golden Bell was dealing with the attack of the formation with all its strength, but it could no longer ring the Golden Bell to fight back. Seeing that Yang Chun had begun to struggle and was in a mess, the 5 people finally showed a gratified smile. The biggest purpose of this trip could be completed. Maybe they didn't have to kill him first, but they could also capture Yang Chun alive. You must know that a living person is more meritorious than a dead person. No one cared about the situation of the strong man. He was just fainted by the Golden Bell. Anyway, there was the protection of the sailboat. There would be no problem landing on the sea. As long as they caught Yang Chun, it would not be too late to treat him. Yang Chun resisted very hard, but it didn't help. Soon, the formation was constrained to a radius of 30 feet, and Yang Chun had to be exhausted to resist the attack of the formation. Chapter 673. The formation of the 5 people could only trap Yang Chun. If the 6th person didn't intervene, maybe it could only be a stalemate. Although the attack of the strong man caused his own spiritual awareness to be injured, it reversed the situation of the stalemate between the 2 sides, and Yang Chun became precarious. Seeing that the scope of the formation was getting smaller and smaller, Yang Chun could not launch a fierce attack at all, and the mood of the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors quickly became better. On the sea, the water spiritual power was abundant. As long as they were willing, they could replenish it at any time. Even the spiritual power consumption caused by Yang Chun's attack could be recovered after a while. Above the sea, it was simply the home field of these water spirit root cultivators. No matter how great Yang Chun's ability was, he could only die here today. In the grinning of the 5 masters, Yang Chun had turned into a trapped lamb in the eyes of everyone, and he was no longer able to resist. So weak, it seems that apart from this magic weapon for protection and the shuttle for escape, there was no other means of attack that could be taken out. They simply didn't know how the genius disciple Li Qingchen was broken in his hands. The 5 masters sent by Taishiman were not the leopard-headed Yuanying stage monster race that Yang Chun encountered in the banyan tree Immortal's cave. They were almost able to compete with Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. The guys in the Immortal's cave did not experience the instinctive sharpening. They just relied on the abundant spiritual power in the Immortal's cave and the systematic cultivation method to cultivate to the Yuanying stage. They didn't know how many streets they were worse than Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. Such a powerful lineup, used to deal with Yang Chun, has already given enough face to Yang Chun, and also reflects the determination of Taishiman. This time they must put Yang Chun to death without mercy. The formation was compressed again, and the 5 masters had already been within 10 feet of Yang Chun. At such a close distance, no matter how powerful Yang Chun was, he could not break through the shackles of the sea-sealing flag array. The large-scale flag array could make the speed of the shuttle drop sharply. At this point, even moving a few steps was almost an extravagant hope. The invisible force almost tightly blocked the entire space. Not only Yang Chun, but even the 5 Yuanying stage masters did not dare to move at all. In such a small space, if he moved carelessly, it would affect the array formation. Now that there was no strong man controlling the sailboat, Yang Chun might slip away. Fortunately, the current situation was basically settled. Yang Chun was just a trapped beast. Under the joint attack of the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors, he could not hold on for a long time. It was better to be safe. Everything looked perfect. Even if the strong man was injured, Yang Chun would not be able to struggle. There was no better ending than this. When they thought that regardless of whether Yang Chun surrendered or was killed, the bell-shaped magic treasure that could resist them for so long would become the spoils of war, everyone felt a wave of excitement. Of course, the most tempting thing was the possibility that Yang Chun might have some pills on him. No one would believe that a person who has refined dozens of questioning inner heart pills would not keep a few on him. Not to mention far away, Yang Chun's own master ancestor, Wang Yong, has just recently been promoted to the Deshang stage. The living example was in front of them, and everyone couldn't help but be envious. The array formation seemed to have reached its minimum size, and it was unlikely to shrink again. The array controlled by 5 people needed to leave a place for everyone to move around. A radius of 10 feet was already the limit. Everyone's heart was settled, and when they felt that the result was only a matter of time, Yang Chun's face suddenly showed a smile. As soon as this smile came out, it suddenly made a few Yuanying stage ancestors have a bad feeling, but what was wrong they couldn't say for a while. Finally, you are close. With the words of Yang Chun, around everyone, hundreds of head-sized things suddenly appeared. There were no less than 100 things around each person. Thunder! One of the Yuanying stage ancestors had a keen eye and immediately recognized these suspended things. However, he only had time to utter a single word before the hundreds of items exploded in unison. Countless lightning bolts suddenly filled the entire area. Everyone's body was covered by hundreds of thick lightning bolts. The intense light made it so that no one could open their eyes and see what was happening. Outside of Yang Chun's body, there was suddenly a shadow of the golden bell, covering Yang Chun's whole body, and Yang Chun's yellow-turbaned strongman body refining technique was also pushed to the extreme, the mountain-picking realm of the body refining technique. The skin's protective power was raised to the highest. Not only that, at this moment, the dome also appeared outside of Yang Chun's body, wrapping Yang Chun and the golden bell in it. The dome, which had been refined by the 7th metal true essence, showed the strongest defensive state at this moment. In the rumbling sound, not only the 5 Yuanying stage ancestors, but even the periphery of Yang Chun was also covered with thunder. The dome at this moment seemed to be incarnated into a huge torch, emitting a dazzling light. These head-sized things were clearly the thunder pomegranates that Yang Chun absorbed enough thunder when he cracked the 7-star heavenly thunder formation in the 100,000 mountains last time. A thunder pomegranate was enough to absorb more than half of the power of Su Qingshin's 9th thunder tribulation. Hundreds of thunder pomegranates exploded at the same time, the power contained was released, the power could be imagined. Of the 5 Yuanying stage masters, except for the guy who recognized the thunder pomegranate, the other 4 didn't even make a sound. Under the baptism of more than 100 thunder lights, they directly turned into powder and disappeared without a trace. Even if they have already passed the thunder tribulation, but in the face of the power of hundreds of 9th thunder tribulations, they still did not have the slightest resistance. Even if there was a formation flag to protect them, it only slightly delayed the time of the thunder light outbreak. It did not help. In an instant, the sea suppression flag array, which had just been tightly closed, disappeared from the sea surface, and the frozen sea surface also returned to normal at this moment. The dome in the middle seemed to have undergone some baptism. At this moment there was a dark red color, and the hot gas was emitted. It seemed that this attack had heated the dome to an extremely high temperature. Suddenly, the domed hull sank into the sea, and white steam rose from the surface of the sea, covering the surroundings tightly. Amidst the white mist, a deep golden bell rang out again. Buzz, the sea seemed to be hit by a giant hammer, and a big pit fell, and then slowly returned to normal. However, a huge ripple followed the waves and spread wildly to the distance. Yang Chen's figure appeared in the middle of the steaming white gas, still holding a flying sword in his hand. His body flickered, and he had already come to the front of the sailboat with wings. He jumped gently and boarded the sailboat, standing in front of the head of the unconscious strong man. Chapter 674. In the mountain gate of Taishimen, the sect master held a strange thing in his hand, bowed his head and frowned for a long time, then raised his head and asked Elder Zhang opposite him, "Are you sure?" "Yes, sect master." Elder Zhang nodded solemnly and said helplessly, "After the confirmation of at least 6 elders in the sect, plus the confirmation of a few knowledgeable people outside, it is the same conclusion. This secret plane has been mentioned in the classics of the sect. This is actually the secret key passed down by the predecessors of our sect?" The sect master of Taishimen held the key in his hand and sighed. At his level, he had seen a lot of good things, and there was not much surprise. This secret plane is different. Elder Zhang saw that the sect master did not seem to pay much attention to it, and hurriedly reminded, "The things in the secret plane are very important. According to the records, it is likely to have a lot of resources and magic weapons, which are very helpful for the current situation of the sect." "Is the location of the secret plane determined?" The sect master nodded. If there were these things, it was really urgent for the current Taishimen. "No." Elder Zhang replied very shamefully, "The sect has records, but the key location is still on the record of the secret key itself. It is still impossible to determine the location of the secret plane. These inscriptions, is there no one who recognizes them?" Of course, the sect master knew why Elder Zhang came to find him, but some things still needed to be confirmed. At least 10,000 years ago, it is normal for some to be lost now. Elder Zhang could hear the complaint in the sect master's tone, but he could only explain it in this way. There was no way, no one in the sect could recognize these inscriptions. They had the key, but they couldn't determine the location of the secret plane, which made people go crazy. Among the cultivators, who knows these inscriptions? The sect master nodded slowly. On this point, he was clearer than Elder Zhang. Although the inheritance of Taishimen exceeded 10,000 years, not much of the things of 10,000 years ago were completely inherited. Many things were developing and changing, even the writing was the same. Taishimen were also the pioneers who promoted this development. However, the sad thing was that the Taishimen couldn't decipher what the sect's predecessors had left behind. It is said that Yang Chen of Chunyang Palace may recognize it. Elder Zhang looked up at the sect master and replied with a slight sigh. "Yang Chen?" The sect master frowned for a while. The sect had already sent 6 Yuanying stage masters to hunt down Yang Chen. Elder Zhang would not be unaware of this. What did it mean to mention Yang Chen at this time? From the mouth of the Blue Cloud sect, a few decades ago, Yang Chen and the Blue Cloud sect's dancing snow fairy went to explore a secret plane. At that time, the secret key was one from Jiuxian. Elder Zhang nodded and explained. That secret plane, it is said that it has been passed down for 10,000 years, causing the master of the late Deshang stage Luo Yuan to chase. This incident made the Blue Cloud sect very angry. Finally, Yang Chen came back. Luo Yuan did not come back. What does this have to do with the secret plane of my sect? The sect master also knew about this matter. The Blue Cloud sect was rushed into the mountain protection formation by a master of the late Deshang stage. It was impossible to hide it. Basically, other sect members knew about it. But for the specific reason, only a few people knew. Elder Zhang also used his personal relationship to know this clue. The key to the secret plane, Zhu Xian has been carrying it on his body, but he doesn't know that it is the key to the secret plane. Elder Zhang said quickly. The inscription on the key to the secret plane is said to be from 10,000 years ago, and Yang Chen knows it. The last sentence was the key, the inscription of the secret plane key from 10,000 years ago. Yang Chen knew it. Although this does not prove that Yang Chen knows the inscription on the key of Taishanmen, but at least there was such a possibility. Yang Chen was a target that the high-level Taishanmen had decided to remove. His existence even affected the strength of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. This was a big problem for Taishanmen. Recruitment failed, immediately decisive arrangements to kill. Even the sect has sent 6 Yuanying stage masters to perform this task. But now, Yang Chen was the most likely candidate to know these inscriptions. Between eliminating Yang Chen and obtaining the resources of the secret plane, it was really difficult for the sect master to choose. Sect master, Yang Chen is a little Jedon stage junior. It is not an intolerable thing to live for a few more days. Elder Zhang also had no choice. He had the key in his hand, but he didn't know the specific location, which made him very depressed. Of course, what was even more depressing was that the one who was most likely to know these inscriptions turned out to be a Jedon stage junior of their opponent, and it was a guy that the sect must eradicate. In this case, Elder Zhang could only ask the sect master to make a decision. Was it to let Yang Chen live for a while, and let him help see what was recorded on the inscription to find the secret plane? Or was it to be eradicated at all costs? The sect master also had a big head. How could he think that a small secret key would have so many implications? In front of them was the resources left by the predecessors of the sect and the death of Yang Chen. Which one was more important? Obviously, Yang Chen was bound to die. Whether it was the elder or the sect master, they all firmly believed this. Perhaps let him help see what was on this inscription, and then die. It was in the best interest of Taishanmen. Did Lu Feng and the others make a move? The sect master sighed and could only choose to let Yang Chen live first. Since Yang Chen was alive, the people sent out could not do it immediately. It's not clear yet. Elder Zhang came for this matter, and naturally knew clearly. However, they sent back the news a month ago. They have caught up with the trace of the kid, just waiting for him to go to sea and then make a move. Well, contact them and let them postpone it. Since the sect master made a decision, he immediately issued an order. There were too many variables in a month's time. If the news was not transmitted in time, maybe Yang Chen would die, and the things that Taishanmen wanted would be buried. Yes, Elder Zhang promised and was about to turn and leave. Suddenly, he saw a disciple stumbling in a hurry, and when he saw the time, he looked a little embarrassed. Disrespectful in front of the sect master, what a scandal. Sect master Elder, there is a big event. The disciple was reprimanded by Elder Zhang, and did not dare to talk back. He hurriedly put away his embarrassed posture and said quickly, "What's the matter? Why are you making such a fuss?" The sect master also frowned. It was not a big event that the sky was falling, and he was so embarrassed in the sect. It seemed that he needed to rectify it. Reporting to the sect master, "I am the disciple on duty in the Chuan Ying Hall." The disciple reported quickly. Just now, Lu Feng and the other 5 ancestors who went out to practice, their life tablets have been completely broken, and they are confirmed to be dead. Chapter 675. What? When they heard this news, the sect master and Elder Zhang stood up and their momentum soared. What did you say? The 6 ancestors who went out to experience their life source tablets have been broken. The disciple who ran in also knew that the situation was not good and said it again, his face almost crying. The life source tablet was left in the sect after the cultivator was promoted to the yuanying stage. When the cultivator died, the tablet would also be broken. Generally, it was stored in the sect's main hall or a special room. There were many yuanying stage masters in Taishimen. The Hall of Heroes was the place where Taishimen specially stored the master's life source tablet. Once the life source tablet was broken, it meant that the cultivator had died. Lu Feng's 6 people were the yuanying stage masters sent by Taishimen to hunt down Yang Chun. Not only did they bring the sect's flying magic weapon, the sea-sealing flag array, but they also had a tracking compass refined by a master of the Deshang stage. It was easy to kill a junior in the Jedan stage. He was just about to ask Elder Zhang to send a message to them and let them not do it for the time being. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the 6 people had died. What happened? Was the pursuit of Yang Chun killed? This was impossible. Yang Chun was just a small Jedan stage junior. Unless there was an accident. Was it broken at the same time, or was it broken one after another? The sect master asked subconsciously, as if he wanted to determine something. Even he himself did not know why he would ask this question. Reporting to the sect master, it was at the same time. The disciple who guarded it recalled a little and gave the answer. In fact, there were still some differences, but the time difference was too short, so it was easy to misunderstand that it was at the same time. Go check it out and see what happened? The sect master calmed down in an instant and ordered loudly. The disciple who had just come to report hurriedly answered and ran out quickly. You go to the Blue Cloud sect to inquire about Yang Chen when he was chased by Luo Yuan. What happened? How could a junior in the foundation stage come back from overseas? But the master of the late Deshang stage disappeared. The sect master calmed down and his mind became more and more meticulous. What kind of magic weapon can kill 6 yuanying stage ancestors at the same time? The sect master instructed the 2 of them, but he himself began to mutter to himself, or is there an unparalleled expert? When Yang Chen was chased by a master of the late Deshang stage, it was obvious to all that something must have happened during the period. Perhaps knowing this would help him figure out what Lu Feng and the others had encountered. There had to be secrets in the ocean that no one knew about. Otherwise, Yang Chen wouldn't have gone overseas every time something happened. This was something that the Taishimen had neglected to consider when they came up with the plan. He had thought that as long as he could trap Yang Chen, it would be a piece of cake to eliminate him. But now, it seemed that it was not the case at all. The loss of 6 yuanying realm ancestors was a big deal in any sect. Soon, the elders of the Taishimen sect were notified and came to discuss the matter. Elder Zhang quickly rushed to the Blue Cloud sect, trying to find out what Yang Chen had encountered when he went to sea. At the moment, it was not a matter of not killing Yang Chen for the time being, but to immediately figure out the cause of death of the 6 yuanying stage ancestors. Of course, the inscription of the secret key that Elder Zhang said, since Yang Chen was not dead for the time being, it would be fine to let him see it, and it would be used as waste. Yang Chen wouldn't know that many things had happened in Taishimen. He was now standing on the sailboat, trying to control this magic weapon. The previous brawny man had been cut off by Yang Chen with a sword, and the body was thrown to the blood demon vine for recovery. As for the Qiankuan bag, of course, it was left to be checked slowly. Now Yang Chen also learned to be smart. When he got the Qiankuan bag, he first threw it to Xiao Tian and let it swallow all the things one by one. If there was anything like a spiritual awareness mark, it would be directly digested by Xiao Tian, leaving no trace. It was not so easy to track Yang Chen in a similar way. This winged sailboat made Yang Chen very surprised. In the memory of his previous life, there was no such thing. In other words, in his previous life, he did not have the opportunity to see the power of such a thing, so it was normal to have no memory. The grade of the sailboat was very high, and it was by no means something that an ordinary yuanying stage master could refine. Yang Chen discovered this after his contact. It seemed that this sailboat was originally a magic weapon for the sect to use as a means of transportation, so after the refining, the refiner himself did not use his spiritual awareness to sacrificial refine, but became a public magic weapon. This was just like the shuttle that Yang Chun obtained from the Dragon Palace treasure house. The owner was no longer there. As long as the spiritual awareness imprint was made, it could be used at any time. The original spiritual awareness imprint of the brawny man also disappeared with the death of the brawny man, which naturally benefited Yang Chun. This sailboat could also fly, but the speed was a bit slower than the shuttle. In the water, although it couldn't enter the water like the shuttle, it could become a high-speed sailboat floating on the water. The most important thing was that the protective ability of this sailboat was very good. If it wasn't for the brawny man fainting on the ground and unable to control it, Yang Chun would have to spend a lot of effort to board the sailboat. This kind of natural protection plus a flying magic weapon, Yang Chun directly arranged the ownership. His senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling did not have a good thing to travel with, so it was just a little sacrificial refining for her to use. Until this time, Yang Chun discovered that the sailboat and the wings were actually two magic weapons. The wings belonged to the brawny man, and without the spiritual awareness imprint, it easily became Yang Chun's possession. After understanding the use of the water-dividing wings, Yang Chun couldn't help but be surprised. Although the water-dividing wings had great restrictions and could not be used in the air, it could double the speed of the shuttle or sailboat in the water. This alone was enough to make Yang Chun happy. The speed of the shuttle doubled in the water. What kind of feeling was that? Even if the second city master changed into his original form and tried his best to flap his wings, it was impossible to catch up with Yang Chun in the water. Yang Chun's shuttle with the water-dividing wings meant that Yang Chun directly gave himself an insurance in the water, and no one could catch up with him. Even if there was someone who could fly faster than Yang Chun's shuttle with the water-dividing wings, it was impossible to have such a powerful attack in the water. The water-dividing wings were directly marked with the spiritual awareness imprint, and after a simple ownership, Yang Chun picked up the compass that the brawny man placed on the deck of the sailboat. With the input of spiritual power, the pointer of the compass immediately moved. Immediately, Yang Chun noticed that the spiritual awareness imprint in his sea of consciousness trembled. This compass was the magic weapon that tracked Yang Chun. It was just that Yang Chun was very puzzled. Who was the owner of this spiritual awareness imprint? How could it be so controlled in his own sea of consciousness? Curious, Yang Chun didn't even want to get rid of the spiritual awareness imprint at all. He wanted to know who this guy was. Chapter 676. In the previous battle, the range of the sea-sealing flag array arranged by the other party at the beginning was so large that the sword array of the dome released by Yang Chun could not cover it. Yang Chun could only find a way to lure the other party to a small area. However, the strength of the 6 Yuanying stage masters plus the strength of the array, even the sword array of the dome, was not necessarily safe. In the end, Yang Chun chose to use the thunder pomegranate to explode. Although the sword array was powerful, in Yang Chun's memory, it cost the cultivation base and life of a few Yuanying stage masters, and it was violently cracked by the sect in his previous life. Although Yang Chun couldn't remember how many Yuanying stage masters there were 6 Yuanying stage masters at the scene, and they were also rich Taishaman disciples. It was likely that each of them had a life source magic weapon. Compared to the sect in his previous life, it was a bit stronger. Using the sword array of the dome was likely to be not worth the loss. This time, all of the thunder pomegranates that Yang Chun had accumulated when he broke the 7-star heavenly thunder formation were all scrap. However, although the price was huge, the harvest was also extremely rich. Not to mention the 2 flying magic weapons of the sailboat and the water-dividing wings, the lives of the 6 Yuanying stage masters were much more precious than hundreds of thunder pomegranates. At least in the eyes of Yang Chun, this was the case. Even if the Taishamen were strong, rich, and did not put human life in their eyes, but the lives of the 6 Yuanying stage ancestors could not be easily given up. Presumably, when the 6 Yuanying stage ancestors died, the Taishamen would definitely be heartbroken. The 5 water element Yuanying stage ancestors directly turned into powder, and even their Qiankuan bags were the same. What Yang Chen could collect was the wealth of this strong man. The people of Taishamen were indeed rich. In addition to the sailboat and the water-dividing wings, even if there was only one Yuanying stage ancestor's Qiankuan bag, Yang Chen really got a lot of good things. The most obvious thing in the Qiankuan bag was a jade plate with different colors on both sides. The top was clear green, but the bottom was white and flawless. The first thing Yang Chen picked up was this jade plate. As soon as the jade plate was in his hand, his spiritual power and spiritual awareness penetrated it. Yang Chen knew the role of the jade plate. This was actually a medicine garden, similar to Yang Chen's own bottle medicine garden, but compared to the medicinal materials in Yang Chen's medicine garden, it was still a lot worse. The best was only 1,000 years old. This was the second medicine garden that Yang Chen obtained after killing people. Presumably, this guy had cultivated this medicine garden from the time he began to cultivate. It must be that he had cultivated this medicine garden since he started cultivating. For things like the medicine garden, Yang Chen would never have too many. Now that the second layer of his own medicine garden had been opened, it could also swallow other medicine garden spaces. No matter how many there were, it would only enrich the output of his own medicine garden and expand the scale of his own medicine garden. The jade plate medicine garden was directly thrown into the bottle medicine garden. Naturally, the 2 tool spirits, a Zhu and a Bai, would slowly swallow it. Without the support of external spiritual power, the medicine garden could not escape the result of being swallowed. It was only a matter of time. Yang Chen was not short of medicinal materials now, and he was not in a hurry to quickly swallow the jade plate medicine garden, so he let a Zhu and a Bai control it by themselves, without wasting too much of his spiritual power. Moreover, this was already at sea. Since he came to the sea, Yang Chen had to go to the treasure house of the Dragon Palace first. There were countless spiritual veins on the huge sea map, and there would never be a lack of spiritual power needed for the medicine garden to swallow. The strong man was beheaded by Yang Chen in a coma, and he had to leave behind a flying sword. Of course, Yang Chen used a means, otherwise this life source flying sword was still alive. If the person died, the sword would die. It would not be easy to get. But with Xiao Tian, everything became simple, as long as he first forced out the flying sword from the other party's sea of consciousness. Under the invasion of Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, people who could still keep the flying sword had not been seen yet. The quality of the flying sword was good, and it was indeed worthy of being a Taishamen. The big family was willing to give these Yuanying stage ancestors the capital, and it was inevitable that a certain loyal disciple in the Chunyang Palace would benefit from it. There were dozens of jade slips in the Qiankuan bag, which recorded some of the cultivation experience and cultivation methods of the strong man. Yang Chen scanned it with his spiritual awareness and put it aside first. He would look at it later when he had the chance. A pile of spirit stones, all of which were directly thrown into Yang Chen's own pile of spirit stones. There were also many kinds of alchemy refining materials. In the eyes of Yang Chen, these were not part of his future flying sword, but part of the spirit stones, so he accepted all of them. In addition, there were a few bottles of spirit pills. They were all things to heal and replenish spiritual power, which were very common. However, there were dozens of magic weapons, both offensive and defensive. Yang Chen turned over each one and learned about its role. He felt that he would not need it for the time being, so he put them all into his own Qiankuan bag. These magic weapons seemed to be a bit mixed. Except for the 2 protective magic weapons, the others were not refined by the strong man himself. The only explanation was that these things were obtained by the strong man from others. Yang Chen was not very clear about the identity of the strong man. This guy did not seem to be good at refining, nor was he good at alchemy. His flying sword was very sharp, and the medicinal pills he carried were all healing and replenishing spiritual power. This could only explain one thing. This guy was simply a thug of the Taishanmen, and he was responsible for fighting. The big martial arts sect had the advantages of a big martial arts sect. The division of labor was detailed, and even everyone's strengths could be fully exerted. This point, the Chunyang Palace could not do it for the time being. There were only a few Yuanying stage ancestors, and it was impossible to distinguish which was specialized in fighting and which was specialized in logistics. If they wanted to go, they must go together. After putting away these spoils, Yang Chen directly installed the water-splitting wings on the shuttle. Suddenly, the speed of the shuttle increased rapidly and flew toward the depths of the ocean. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness silk wrapping could not avoid the tracking of the other party's compass, indicating that the guy who left the spiritual awareness imprint was somewhat strange. It was very easy for Yang Chen to destroy him. As long as he threw the spiritual awareness imprint into the blood river from time to time, the other party would definitely die, but Yang Chen did not intend to do so. First, Yang Chen was also curious about the identity of this guy. Second, by leaving this spiritual awareness imprint, he could let the other party's attention focus on himself from time to time. It was also a way to reduce some pressure and attention for the sect and the people around him, so that it could develop quietly. Moreover, naturally, Yang Chen still maintained a strong interest in this way of making money. As long as the other party could track him, he would naturally find ways to kill him. 6 Yuanying stage masters had died, and it was definitely the end of the two sides. Even if there was nothing on the surface, there would be a crazy fight in the dark. For the current Yang Chen, it was another kind of pressure and motivation to urge him to improve his cultivation base. Chapter 677. With the memory of his previous life, Yang Chen would subconsciously avoid some risks and resolve some major events that could bring danger to the sect and the people around him in advance. It was human nature to seek good fortune and avoid disaster, which was understandable. Of course, in this way, a lot of dangers were gone, but it also meant that there was not enough experience. Many times, the Real Masters were not cultivated, but they were born in life and death battles. Not only the people around Yang Chen, but even Yang Chen himself did this subconsciously. This also led to another consequence, that was, from beginning to end, Yang Chen had not encountered a real life and death threat. Luo Yuan was one, and the second city lord was another, but they had not forced Yang Chen's trump card until they died. This was of course a good thing for safety, but it also made Yang Chen have an invisible relaxation. Even if Yang Chen knew that this kind of relaxation was fatal in his heart, there was no external factor to force himself. Yang Chen's own initiative alone could not force himself to the limit. Without limits, there was no breakthrough. This was common sense. The Taishanmen actually began to secretly assassinate Yang Chen at this time, which definitely gave Yang Chen an excellent opportunity to temper himself. What Yang Chen had to do was to take advantage of this opportunity to force himself into a state of tension, which was the best catalyst for cultivation. Leaving that spiritual awareness imprint was to keep a lighthouse to guide the direction of the other party, and also to give himself an opportunity to face strong enemies. However, since he was at sea, Yang Chen was certainly not willing to make another trip in vain. Anyway, why not go to the Dragon Palace treasure house first? His original plan was to go to the treasure house to see if he could get a few more magic weapons, and to collect as much 10th water true essence as possible, so that his 10th water spirit power could also condense. Of course, it was not a bad plan, but the order of taking 7th metal true essence and 10th water true essence was changed. Fortunately, there was such a pursuit by the Taishanmen. Otherwise, Yang Chen would not necessarily know that the spiritual awareness imprint wrapped in his sea of consciousness could also point out his direction to the opponent. If Yang Chen accidentally went to the Dragon Palace treasure house and was tracked, wouldn't the location of the treasure house be exposed? With this lesson, Yang Chen was of course very cautious when he went to the treasure house. The sea jasper could isolate the spiritual awareness. Even Luo Yuan could not find Yang Chen's trace, not to mention a small tracking formation. What's more, collecting the 10th water true essence was one of the functions of the sea jasper. Directly wrapping the shuttle with the sea jasper, Yang Chen turned a few directions along the way and boldly went to the Dragon Palace treasure house. With the strong speed of the water dividing wings, this time he rushed to the Dragon Palace treasure house. Although the distance was more than doubled, it did not take too much time, just a few more days than before. 2 months later, Yang Chen had arrived at the sea above the Dragon Palace. Putting away the shuttle and the water-dividing wings, Yang Chen quickly dived to the bottom of the sea and entered the treasure house. In fact, even if Yang Chen exposed the location of the Dragon Palace treasure house, the people of Taishaman would not be able to find it when they rushed over. The treasure house itself was now a huge sea rock, and without a unique method, it was impossible to enter. Even if the other party knew that Yang Chen was inside, it was not an impossible thing to get in. The protection of the Dragon Palace treasure house was so tight that there was almost no need to consider it. As for using brute force to consume spiritual power, it was even more of a joke. On the huge sea map on the treasure house square, the entire East China Sea's spiritual veins were captured in one fell swoop. Even if all the disciples of Taishaman were exhausted, it was impossible to compete with the entire East China Sea's spiritual veins. Even if they were exhausted to death, it was impossible to open a corner of the Dragon Palace. The 10th water true essence collected along the way, although the amount was not much, Yang Chen did not waste it at all and sent it directly into the gourd. The gourd obtained from the Dragon Palace treasure house showed its powerful function at this time. As soon as the 10th water true essence entered the gourd, it was immediately condensed into a liquid drop and stored separately in a small corner. Even without any talisman to restrain it, there was no trace of leakage. What surprised Yang Chen even more was that when the gourd river and the sea jasper were put together, the sea jasper seemed to fully exert its strongest effect of condensing the 10th water true essence. Originally, it took a few months to condense a few drops. Now, in one day, it was more than the 10th water true essence obtained in the past few months. The place where the 10th water true essence was stored in the gourd had become a small water puddle the size of a rice bowl. There were still drops of 10th water true essence that were condensed into liquid drops every day, filling the future lake all the time. The 10,000 trees forest was only tens of thousands of miles. In just 10,000 years, a lake of first wood true essence spiritual solution had been produced. The entire area of the East China Sea was several times larger than the 10,000 trees forest. This was not counting, several oceans were interconnected. Even if it was based on the sea where Yang Chen was chased by Luo Yuan last time, the straight-line distance was more than millions of miles away. The condensed 10th water true essence in the sea was almost endless. With the gourd and the sea jasper, Yang Chen didn't even have to do it himself. He just put the gourd and the jasper on the sea map and it would keep collecting by himself. Without controlling the sea jasper, Yang Chen was of course happy and relaxed. He followed Xiao Tian and rushed directly into the hall where the magic weapon was stored. From the beginning of entering the treasure house, Yang Chen released Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian's favorite position was to keep flying around the huge dragon bead, but it was always repelled by an invisible force and could not get close. Obviously, at this time, Xiao Tian could not collect this dragon bead, but the dragon chi around it made Xiao Tian very happy. Looking at this scene, Yang Chen shook his head and took Xiao Tian directly inside and began to ponder the things on the remaining jade cases. He had already obtained the shuttle, the gourd, the sea jasper, and the golden bell from here. On the jade case there were still 4 things that Yang Chen did not collect: a rope-like thing, a small tower, 2 branches, and a painting scroll. Xiao Tian was already familiar with doing this. He absorbed the dragon qi in the 4 formations, plus the magic weapon spiritual awareness among the 16 life source magic weapons, one of which was the flying sword spiritual awareness of a master of the Deshang stage. Xiao Tian was much stronger than last time. With a small mouth, Xiao Tian began to swallow the dragon qi around the painting scroll. Seeing that the invisible dragon qi turned into a wisp of smoke, the silk entered the mouth of Xiao Tian, and the formation around the jade case began to become weaker and weaker. Chapter 678. It took a lot of time for Xiao Tian to swallow the dragon power of a formation. After Yang Chen arranged the gourd and the sea jasper and placed the bottle medicine garden on a certain spiritual vein, he only had to wait. Yang Chen was waiting patiently. In fact, at this point, he had nothing else to do but wait. Of course, the cultivation could not be interrupted. The profound spirit furnace absorbed a lot of fire seeds, and while the quality was improved, it also stored a large number of fire seeds for the yin-yang heaven burning fire. During the waiting time, Yang Chen could control the yin-yang heaven burning fire to absorb one or several kinds of fire seed. Now all the first and second grade fire seeds on Yang Chen's body have been completely absorbed, and the third-grade fire seeds were the first to be absorbed. Hundreds of third-grade fire seeds were waiting for Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire to enjoy. Even if it didn't do anything, it would take a long time just to wait for these fire seeds to be fused and absorbed. This time was at least calculated in decade. After all, the yin-yang heaven-burning fire was still only a prototype, and the strongest flame among them was only a third-grade fire seed. Every time it swallowed a third-grade fire seed, it would take at least half a year to 10 months. While following the order of daily cultivation, the yellow turban strongman body refining technique and the yin-yang 5 elements secret art were cultivated once, Yang Chen controlled the yin-yang heaven-burning fire to absorb a third-grade fire seed. The absorption process was an automatic process. Yang Chen only needed to control the start of the fusion and absorption, and he could no longer pay attention to it, as long as he was always careful to guard against any accidents. The yin-yang heaven-burning fire had already merged several kinds of fire seeds. At this point, it was not easy to have an accident to absorb the third-grade fire seed. Unless Yang Chen was attacked and seriously injured during the absorption process, otherwise, even if Yang Chen was in battle, there would be no accident. The remaining 4 jade cases were also the most heavily guarded for. With Xiao Tian's current ability, it had been swallowed for a whole half a year and still had not opened the painting scroll. In the 8th month, Yang Chen had successfully absorbed the third-grade third fire seed. The third fire dragon of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire became stronger and stronger, and the color became deeper and deeper, purple and shiny. After the fusion of a kind of fire seed, Yang Chen temporarily stopped absorbing the fire seed and waited for Xiao Tian to break the array of the scroll. After such a long time, the remaining array formation was already on the verge of collapse. If not for the fact that Yang Chen was afraid that the scroll inside would be damaged, he might have forcefully broken the array formation. However, Yang Chen did not do that in the end. Instead, he waited patiently. A month later, the array outside the scroll finally disappeared, and all the dragon qi was swallowed up by howling heaven. As soon as the formation disappeared, Yang Chen reached out and grabbed the scroll painting. He quickly moved away from the jade table and rushed to the center of the hall. After confirming that he had completely obtained the scroll painting, Yang Chen began to slowly size it up. The scroll painting was rolled together, and he didn't know what was painted inside. However, the axis material of the scroll painting was very rare. It was a kind of sea heart jade that would only appear in the deep sea. This kind of sea heart jade, even if Yang Chen was in the heavenly court, he had only seen it once, and it was still on a certain scroll of the Jade Emperor. The preciousness could be imagined. 2 small dragon heads popped out on both sides of the round axis, which were lifelike. The 4 dragon eyes were made of unknown materials for the time being. They were shining with a kind of restrained light that was easy to ignore. If it wasn't for Yang Chen staring closely, it would be almost impossible to notice. The material of the axis was so rare, and the material of the scroll painting made Yang Chen even more surprised. When his hand touched it, Yang Chen's first reaction was that it was a kind of animal skin, but what kind of animal skin, Yang Chen was still not sure. However, when the scroll painting was opened a little bit and more aura escaped, Yang Chen had already understood what kind of skin it was. Dragon skin. The material used in this scroll painting turned out to be dragon skin. Other than that, there was no other possibility. Not to mention that the dragon aura exuded was faintly similar to the aura of the dragon beads in the entire treasure house. Just the fact that the East China Sea Dragon King would solemnly keep things here has fully explained this point. In addition to the dragon skin, what kind of monster's skin was worth putting in the treasure house of the Dragon Palace? When the entire scroll was opened, it was a long scroll with a length of 15 feet and a width of 2 feet. On the snow-white scroll, except for a small black dot in the center, the rest of the scroll was blank and there was nothing. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness explored slightly and easily entered the scroll painting. A piece of information quickly entered Yang Chen's mind, and Yang Chen instantly understood the role of the scroll painting. The name of the scroll painting was called Mountain River Geographical Map, but it was an array map. The small dot in the center of the array map was not just a black dot, it was clearly the complete geographical map of the entire East China Sea. When the spiritual awareness explored, the small dot almost became the entire East China Sea, and Yang Chen's spiritual awareness could not even easily find the edge. This was an unfinished mountain river geographical map, and only the geographical map of the East China Sea was drawn on it. According to Yang Chen's understanding, this mountain river geographical map could be improved without limit. The way to supplement it was to take this magic weapon to a place where it had not been drawn, and this magic weapon would automatically draw the place where the owner of the magic weapon had walked. At any time, as long as the owner of the magic weapon was willing, he could check the terrain of any place that had been drawn through the mountain river geographical map. No matter how complex the terrain was, it could be clearly marked on the map. Of course, this was only the most basic role of the mountain river geographical map. For an array map, it was just a record of the terrain, it was a bit of a waste. The most powerful thing about this mountain river geographical map was that as long as the owner of the map launched the array map, it could directly trap the opponent in the array map that had been marked by the mountain river geographical map. Attacking or trapping was up to the will of the owner of the array map, unless the cultivation base was much higher and knew how to break the array. Otherwise, even if the array map could not kill the opponent, it could trap them for a long time without being able to break free. More importantly, the more complete this mountain river geographical map was, the greater the power of the array formation would be. If those famous natural danger spots could also be drawn, the array formation could directly use these natural danger spots to attack the opponent, which was extremely powerful. Not only that, this array map was actually divided into several levels. In this way, not only the mortal world, but even the spiritual world and the immortal world could be completely drawn out. This magic weapon could actually be used directly in the heavenly court. The Dragon Clan's supreme treasure, the dragon skin made of the array map, the powerful array formation, these were not counted, the entire scroll was even of the earth attribute. These things combined were simply the most suitable life source magic weapon for his senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling. Chapter 679. It was definitely an unexpected surprise. Even Yang Chen did not expect that this mountain river geographical map would be so suitable for Gong Sunling's cultivation. He had been worried before that Gong Sunling was not a sword cultivator and it was not appropriate to give her a life source flying sword. Now there was no such problem at all. In the surprise, Yang Chen put away the mountain river geographical map and began to look at the next jade case. What was that rope-like thing? Could it be a magic weapon similar to the Immortal binding rope? Looking forward to it, Yang Chen directly ordered Xiao Tian to start devouring the dragon qi around the jade case. This jade case was placed in the same row as the mountain river geographical map. The power of the peripheral formation should be the same, and Xiao Tian could cope with it. While waiting, Yang Chen still cultivated the same way, fusing the fire seed, but this time it was replaced with a third-grade fire seed. Yang Chen deliberately controlled the absorption of the fire seed and carefully maintained the balance of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire, which was good for improving the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Of course, waiting was not completely boring. At least Yang Chen found that as the 10th water true essence in the gourd increased, it seemed that the speed of the sea jasper cup's absorption of the 10th water true essence was getting faster and faster. The small puddle formed by the 10th water true essence in the gourd was no longer the size of a rice bowl, but it had become the size of a washbasin. The 10th water true essence spiritual solution, which was originally only 1 finger thick, was now the thickness of a fist. So much 10th water true essence, and it was condensed into a liquid 10th water true essence, was enough to support Yang Chen's absorption for a long time. It must be known that Yang Chen did not have anything like the Penglai divine wood that could absorb the first wood true essence spiritual solution without limit. It was definitely a difficult process to absorb it by himself. Even if he was fusing a third-grade fire, Yang Chen did not care and began to absorb these 10th water true essence. With the control of the gourd, Yang Chen's absorption speed could be adjusted at will. Yang Chen could simultaneously control the 10 types of spiritual power of the yin and yang 5 elements secret art. Naturally, he wouldn't care about such a trivial matter. The 10th water spirit power was originally cultivating the 10th water true secret art. All the 10th water spirit power had been converted into the 10th water true essence. It was very smooth to absorb these 10th water spiritual solution. It's just limited by the fact that the current 10th water spiritual power has not yet condensed, so it can't be absorbed quickly. It can only restrain the 10th water spiritual solution into a trace and drill into the palm of Yang Chen and be slowly assimilated and absorbed by Yang Chen. The process of condensing a core was originally a process where one's spiritual power was strengthened to the limit, and then a qualitative change would occur. However, if there is no external force, relying on the spiritual power added by Yang Chen's own cultivation method, if he wants to reach the point of condensing Dan, according to Yang Chen's own estimation, it will take at least 5 years to run the 10th water true secret art. Now with the same origin of the 10th water true essence, there was naturally a lot less trouble. As long as Yang Chen absorbs and integrates these spiritual powers with the same origin, he could strengthen his own cultivation base. This was also the original spiritual power of the 10th water true essence and the first wood true essence. No other spiritual power could do this. Even if Yang Chen uses a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, he still needs a process of transformation and absorption. The efficiency cannot be compared with the direct absorption of the 10th water true essence. However, this method would only be used by Yang Chen at the time of breakthrough. The usual cultivation was the real foundation, and it could not be replaced by adding a little spiritual power at will. The speed of condensing the 10th water true essence in the inverted sea jasper cup now far exceeded the speed of Yang Chen's absorption. Yang Chen could cultivate in the treasure house without worrying about any problems. Time passed quickly, and half a year passed in a flash. The third-grade 4th fire seed was easily absorbed by Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Yang Chen changed to another fire seed to continue the process. The speed of Xiao Tian's swallowing was still the same, neither fast nor slow, and the dragon qi around the jade case was getting less and less. According to the experience of the last jade case, Yang Chen estimated that it would take a few months to complete. In the continuous cultivation, another 3 months passed quickly. When Yang Chen completed a cultivation cycle and entered the hall again, He was immediately delighted to find that the dragon chi around the second jade case had also been completely absorbed by Xiao Tian. The inconspicuous rope on the jade table was placed casually on top of it. Yang Chen rushed over and took it in his hand. When he got it, Yang Chen noticed the difference. This was not a rope, it was clearly a magic weapon that had been strong to the extreme. Fortunately, this magic weapon was now completely undefended against Yang Chen, allowing Yang Chen to easily put his spiritual awareness and spiritual power into it. Subsequently, Yang Chen instantly understood the role of this rope. This was a long rope made of 5 kinds of dragon tendons. The 5 kinds of dragon tendons belonged to the 5 elements: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. After it was kneaded, it was refined by the dragon power and became a long rope that could be long or short and could be controlled at will. At the 2 ends of the long rope, one end was 5 sets, which could be big or small and belonged to the 5 elements. The other end was a hook-like thing, but it was composed of 5 small hooks, which also belonged to the 5 elements, but it was made from the bones of a special part of the 5 dragons. This set could obviously be put on the wrist by 5 masters of the 5 elements and control the hook at the other end, which could grasp everything in the air. In addition, the long rope in the middle could be controlled at will. The strength and toughness were also strong enough. It was simply a natural tool to lengthen the arm. In some places that he couldn't explore, there was such a tool. It was simply like adding wings to a tiger. The 5 masters of the 5 elements were obviously considering the control of the 5 elements, but in Yang Chen's place, he could control it alone. What made Yang Chen even more happy was that this was not only a tool for grasping, but also a good thing to escape at any time on certain occasions. And this rope hook directly reminded Yang Chen of the scene of a magic weapon that would cause a sensation in the cultivation world hundreds of years later. It seemed that such a thing needed a long rope tool like this to hook from a place that ordinary people could not reach. Could it be that God let Yang Chen get this rope hook in order to let him join the battle in the future? And he deliberately set aside such a long time. Could it be that he wanted to let himself finish the sacrificial refining of this rope hook? Thinking of that opportunity, even Yang Chen couldn't help but be moved. Forcibly suppressing this idea, Yang Chen and Xiao Tian communicated again and motioned Xiao Tian to continue to swallow the dragon chi of the next jade case. Now Xiao Tian was still at ease. Maybe he could get 3 magic weapons this time. In the midst of the surprise, Yang Chen suddenly noticed that there was some movement in his medicine garden. Although the medicine garden has been placed on the sea map outside, the spirit has always been connected with Yang Chen. Aware of the changes in the medicine garden, Yang Chen hurriedly withdrew from the hall and came to the sea map. His figure flashed and he entered the medicine garden. Chapter 680. As soon as Yang Chen appeared in the first layer of the medicine garden, he saw a Zhu and a Bai. When the two saw Yang Chen, of course, they immediately saluted. With a move of his mind, Yang Chen understood the changes in the medicine garden. It was the jade plate medicine garden obtained from the brawny man that had been swallowed. Whether it was the first layer or the second layer, the space had increased a lot. Originally, it was not so easy to swallow a medicine garden space. The last time Yang Chen controlled the medicine garden to swallow the crystal ball medicine garden of the second city master, it was because of the scouring of a large number of first wood true essence spiritual solution, which led to the success of the crystal ball medicine garden in a short period of time. This time, Yang Chen did not use the first wood true essence spiritual solution. However, even so, he placed the medicine garden on a spiritual vein in the sea map. The huge spiritual power was almost never interrupted. With the simultaneous control of the 2 tool spirits of a Zhu and a Bai, there was a continuous supply of spiritual power. Even if the spiritual power was not as advanced as the first wood true essence spiritual solution, in less than 2 years, it still successfully swallowed the jade plate medicine garden completely. The medicinal herbs in the Jade Plate Medicine Garden have all been planted in the first layer of the medicine garden space. Those medicinal herbs were too short and could only grow in the first layer. The 10,000 years of spirit medicine that Yang Chun had obtained before, he didn't know when it had been transplanted into the second layer space by a Zhu and a Bai. Now in the second layer space, there was no spirit medicine under 10,000 years of age. After entering the second layer of the portal, it seemed that after absorbing the Jade Plate Medicine Garden, Yang Chun could show it if he wanted to, and hide it if he wanted to. And he, the master, could enter any place in the medicine garden anytime and anywhere. This significant change did not mean much to Yang Chun. However, it could also allow Yang Chun to bring some close people into the medicine garden space and show something that would not surprise them. Of course, this was only the close people around Yang Chun. Otherwise, even if there were hundreds of thousands of profound yang fruits, it was enough to make people greedy. The space expanded a lot, almost doubled. Although the grade of the Jade Plate Medicine Garden was not high, it had a huge space, several times larger than Yang Chen's previous pure bottle medicine garden. In this way, the current space naturally had a lot of space. Master, the slaves have a request. Yang Chun had not thought about how to use these open spaces, but a Zhu and a Bai fell in front of Yang Chun. Because there was a lot of spiritual power nourishing the medicine garden, the bodies of the two tool spirits became more and more solid. When they were waiting for the new master in the Xiangyang mountain, at most, they could only absorb the spiritual power of 100 miles, and barely maintain the growth of the spirit medicines in the medicine garden. How could they follow Yang Chun? They almost never lacked spiritual power. Especially after the appearance of the two women, a Zhu was bathed by Yang Chun with the first wood true essence spiritual solution, and there was a reborn change. Previously, the two girls didn't dare to absorb too much of the spiritual energy in the medicine garden, afraid that they would be reprimanded by Yang Chun. However, on the map, the spiritual energy was almost endless. Even if they were only controlling the Jade Plate Medicine Garden, they still obtained a lot of benefit. One of the benefits was that his body was more solid. Now, the two women looked no different from two real people. Kneeling in front of Yang Chun in unison, it was quite a touching scene. However, Yang Chun didn't care about their bodies at all. He was just curious about the two artifact spirits' request. He asked curiously, "What request?" "I feel that the surrounding water spiritual power is abundant, presumably not far from the sea." Abai raised her head and said respectfully, "I also ask the master to collect some seawater into the medicine garden. If possible, please also collect some seabed spirit medicines to add to the medicine garden, so that the slaves can study them." The two artifact spirits were now bound to the medicine garden. The only fun they had before was to take care of the spirit medicines in the medicine garden space, watching them grow strong and grow stronger and stronger, which made them feel a sense of satisfaction. But after being collected by Yang Chun, the two women found that there were still a lot of fun. For example, upgrading the medicine garden, quenching the medicine garden with various kinds of spirit power to make it change qualitatively. After the 10th water spirit power quenched the medicine garden, the change that took place was that there was an ocean in the medicine garden. This was a huge change, and it also made the two women more eager to know what the spirit medicines in the ocean were like. However, although after Yang Chen's refining, there was a 10th water ocean, but after all, it was not real seawater. To make the spirit medicines in the ocean grow, real seawater was needed to pour in. Then after the transformation of the 10th water true essence, it was a suitable environment for the growth of marine spirit medicines. As artifact spirits, a Zhu and a Bai knew much more about the medicine garden than Yang Chun. At this point, it was difficult for Yang Chun to achieve it even if he flattered his horse. What's so difficult about this? When Yang Chun heard that it was just such a request, of course, he would not refuse. This was the depths of the sea. Wasn't it easy to get some seawater? Anyway, now the sea jasper cup also needed to condense the 10th water true essence, and Xiao Tian still needed a longer time to absorb the dragon qi around the jade case. Yang Chen's meditation during this time also seemed to be a little tired. It just happened to go out and walk around. While collecting seawater, he could also collect some seabed spirit medicines. Xiao Tian and Yang Chen have long had a master-servant relationship. Yang Chen did not have to worry about the safety of Xiao Tian in the treasure house. He directly threw Xiao Tian in the treasure house and took the medicine garden and the gourd sea jasper cup out of the treasure house. It was too easy to collect seawater. After leaving the treasure house for a distance, Yang Chen chose a place near the spiritual vein with clear seawater, opened the medicine garden, and began to collect seawater. A large amount of seawater poured into the medicine garden and quickly filled the empty space around the medicine garden. This was a place that a Zhu and a Bai had already planned. Even in order to consider the growth of some deep-sea plants, a drop of thousands of feet was deliberately set. Hundreds of miles of space, plus such a drop, the amount of seawater needed was not a little bit. In order to prevent the spirit medicines in the medicine garden from being affected, Yang Chen had to control the speed of collecting seawater. Even so, after spending almost half a month, there were two vast oceans in the medicine garden. The first layer and the second layer each had a piece. The seawater was blue and clear. Under the control of a Zhu and a Bai, there were even tidal changes, a beautiful ocean scenery. Master, we also need some seabed soil. A Zhu reminded. The seabed mud that has been soaked in seawater for thousands of years is slightly different from the one that has just been soaked in the medicine garden. Chapter 681. The medicine garden was his own thing, and Yang Chen certainly would not dislike the space inside. Since a Zhu said so, there must be a reason for her. And it did sound reasonable. Yang Chen said nothing and began to collect the seabed mud. The world under the sea was completely different from the land. Yang Chen not only collected the seabed mud, but also collected some corals and shellfish that grew on the seabed. This was also the intention of a Zhu. After all, the growth of the seabed elixir also needed a circle, not only water and soil. Just like the elixir on land, it also needed some small creatures to balance it. In fact, the original space of the medicine garden was a complete ecosystem, but there were no creatures on the food chain higher than the elixir. The same was true of the ocean, and it also needed such an environment. Of course, Yang Chen would choose those places with abundant spiritual power and collect them wantonly. As for what kind of creature was suitable, and what kind of creature was not suitable, a Zhu and a Bai would judge at that time, and Yang Chen did not have to worry about it. Although Yang Chen was already a master of alchemy, and he still had the memory of his previous life, for some elixirs in the ocean, Yang Chen still had some lack of knowledge. A Zhu and a Bai asked him to collect some elixirs in the ocean, but apart from some famous ones, such as the Four Seas mysterious coral liquid, Yang Chen really did not know what elixirs were. Whether it was the mortal world, the spiritual world, or the immortal world, there were huge oceans, and there were also rich marine life. However, for some reason, few alchemists would identify and use the elixirs in the ocean. In this regard, Yang Chen did not have much experience. Perhaps it was because the ocean was full of all kinds of dangers and variables. Even in the immortal world, those great principal golden immortals had not fully explored it. For things that everyone did not understand, there were naturally various concerns. After all, apart from those sea monsters, most of the immortals and monster immortals lived on land, and it was very normal for them to not fully understand the interior of the ocean. It was estimated that this was one of the reasons why alchemists rarely used marine elixirs. However, few uses did not mean that no one used them. At least for those sects near the ocean, there were a lot of research in this area. For example, the sect was in the Green Jade Immortal Island on the sea. Speaking of it, Yang Chen has not been to the Green Jade Immortal Island for a long time, nor has he gone to find Shishanshan. It happened to be at sea, and he also wanted to see the records of the Green Jade Immortal Island in this regard. Yang Chun could only make a trip to see Shirshanshan. After finding the right direction, Yang Chun began to collect seabed mud along the way. He also collected various seabed plants along the way. In any case, the space was very big now. When the time came, even if it wasn't an elixir, he could directly get rid of it, so he wouldn't have to go back and look for it. On the seabed, with the shuttle and the monster power crystal left by Senior Laning, Yang Chen is almost unimpeded. No demonic beast dared to appear in front of Yang Chen. Wherever Yang Chen went, they would avoid him. No matter what Yang Chen did, there was no trouble at all. Coincidentally, when Yang Chen passed by a seabed, he found a cluster of 1,000-year-old mysterious coral. After this kind of thing reached 1,000 years of age, it would secrete a drop of purple liquid every year, which was the 4 Seas mysterious coral liquid. Although there were already countless 4 Seas mysterious coral liquids in Yang Chen's gourd, Yang Chen did not hesitate to collect this cluster of 1,000-year-old mysterious coral into the medicine garden. In the future, if someone asked about the source of his 4 Seas mysterious coral liquid, he could rely on this to explain. There was no hindrance along the way, but it took some time to collect seabed mud. 6 months later, Yang Chen won enough seabed mud and laid a thick layer on the seabed of the medicine garden, and then he rushed to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen was now a celebrity, especially in the Green Jade Immortal Island. He was a distinguished guest who had been told from top to bottom to be super courteous. As soon as Yang Chen arrived at the mountain gate of the Green Jade Immortal Island, he had just reported his name according to the rules. Before he could explain his intention, he was directly sent to the residence of Shirshanshan. In the eyes of the people of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Yang Chen was now the son-in-law of the Green Jade Immortal Island. As soon as he arrived at the Green Jade Immortal Island, he didn't have to visit other places, but directly sent to Shirshanshan. Anyway, the disciple who received them would not run any errands for Yang Chen. If Yang Chen had any requirements, he could directly find Shirshanshan. Of course, the arrival of Yang Chen must be informed to the high-level members of the sect. As for when Yang Chen would visit, it was Yang Chen's own business. Originally, he thought that he was presumptuous, and Shirshanshan might not necessarily be in the Green Jade Immortal Island, but what surprised Yang Chen was that Shirshanshan was not only there, but also stayed for a long time. In the past, unless Yang Chen said it in advance, most of the time, Shirshanshan was practicing outside. Unless there was any major breakthrough, she would retreat in the sect. This time, Yang Chen came uninvited, and he could actually meet Shirshanshan in the sect, which was also the fate of the two. However, this time, it seemed that Shirshanshan was in some trouble. When Yang Chen saw Shirshanshan for the first time, he found that there was a trace of exhaustion in Shirshanshan's eyes that could not be erased, and her figure was a little haggard. The cold plum fairy actually had such a morbid state, which surprised Yang Chen. It must be known that Shirshanshan was a master of the Jedan stage. Even when Yang Chen just began to cultivate, because of Yang Chen's words, she entered the Jedan stage. Her cultivation base was strong, and her aptitude was good, which was rare in the world. How could there be such a state? Yang Chen was shocked, and without waiting for Shirshanshan to speak, he directly reached out and grabbed Shirshanshan's wrist pulse, and silently felt it. Shirshanshan's delicate hand was grabbed by Yang Chen, and there was also a disciple of the sect next to her, and her face suddenly turned red. But in the end, she did not struggle, but just let Yang Chen grab her wrist. The female disciple who led Yang Chen to the reception saw this scene, but she smiled slightly, didn't say anything, and turned away. Anyway, the person had already been brought to the place, and other things had nothing to do with her. What she should do now was to report to the higher-ups of the sect. It doesn't seem like there is any illness. After checking the pulse for a while, Yang Chen frowned and stared at Shirshanshan's face for a long time, making Shirshanshan a little shy, Then he asked, "What happened?" "It's nothing serious." Sher Shanshan gently withdrew her wrist, turned around and made a gesture of invitation. Regardless of whether Yang Chun followed or not, she went back directly. Yang Chun didn't say anything and directly followed, keeping pace with Sher Shanshan. "A few months ago, I suddenly had some difficulty calming down, and my cultivation stagnated, and I couldn't move forward." As Sher Shanshan walked, she said lightly, "Maybe it's because I've been cultivating for too long, and there are some inner demons." Please subscribe. Chapter 682. Heart Demon? When Yang Chun heard Sher Shanshan say this, he was relieved. Although the heart demon was terrible for cultivators, since Sher Shanshan was neither in battle nor in the process of breaking through the tribulation, it was not a big deal to have some heart demons. Not all heart demons would be fatal. In the process of cultivation, it was inevitable that the average person would encounter several or even dozens of heart demons. There were many reasons for the emergence of heart demons. Sometimes it was because something was not figured out, and sometimes it was because there was a deviation in cultivation. Anyway, there were many reasons, all kinds of them, and no one could explain them all. However, there was one thing that everyone knew. As long as it wasn't caused by the great vow of the heart demon, it was basically possible to overcome the heart demon. It was the same even during the tribulation transcendence. It completely depended on one's cultivation and state of mind. Since it was a problem of the heart demon, Yang Chun was not too anxious. Anyway, with the current state of Sher Shanshan, there would be no life-threatening danger. It would only slightly affect the speed of cultivation, so there was no need to make a fuss. Generally speaking, the best way to solve the heart demon was to figure it out yourself. It was hard to say how long it would take. Sometimes it would take a long time, sometimes it might be very short, and so on. Soon, the two sat face to face in Sher Shanshan's house. Between the two, there was a delicate wooden table with a set of delicate tea sets on it. At the side of the table, there was a small stove that was boiling a pot of water. "Try these, they are a little older." Sher Shanshan was about to brew the tea that Yang Chun gave her last time, but Yang Chun took out another jade box, which contained the new tea that Yang Chun made on the road. The new tea, because of the recent great changes in the pure bottle medicine garden, was more mature, and the spiritual power was more abundant. After Yang Chen's special quenching and frying with 7th metal true essence, it was not a general delicacy for Sher Shanshan. A cup of tea might even be comparable to a heavenly cycle circulation. Ever since she came in, Sher Shanshan's face had that kind of indifferent expression. Only when she heard what Yang Chun said did she recover a little bit of calmness. A look of pleasant surprise and anticipation flashed in his eyes. He took the jade box and carefully opened it. Using a jade spoon, he scooped out a little of the new tea and placed it into the teapot. Before Sher Shanshan could reach for the kettle, Yang Chun had already reached out and snatched it. With a flash of fire in his hand, the flame directly rushed into the kettle, boiling the water in the kettle in an instant, but not too much. With a slight tilt, Yang Chun poured the boiling water over the teapot and slowly warmed it. He asked in a relaxed tone, "What's wrong? You suddenly became an inner demon?" Their tone was like two close friends chatting without any reservations. In fact, after what had happened in the past, and with the common hobby of drinking tea, the two of them could be considered good friends. At least in the eyes of Sher Shanshan, for the time being, there was no friend who was closer to her than Yang Chun. Perhaps Yang Chen's casual tone made Sher Shanshan relax in an instant. Perhaps the timing of Yang Chen's words was too good, just at the moment when Sher Shanshan intended to enjoy it wholeheartedly. Anyway, when Yang Chun asked, Sher Shanshan said it directly without thinking about it. "Recently, I want to break through the middle stage of gold core, but I have been staying in this realm. I have been unable to break through for a long time. I feel ashamed to face my teacher." Sher Shanshan said it in one breath. Suddenly, she realized that she had even unconsciously told Yang Chen this kind of worry. She waited for a while and blushed. This kind of feeling, Sure Shanshan had not even mentioned it to her master. Since she felt ashamed to face her teacher, how could she tell this kind of feeling to her teacher? However, in front of Yang Chen, she was so casual. Even Sure Shanshan felt her heart jump. Could it be that she had really fallen in love with Yang Chen? For Yang Chen, Sure Shanshan was a little annoyed at first. Of course, that was because of Li Qingchen's misdirection. Later, she felt a little guilty because she used Yang Chen. But later, she was very surprised. She was shocked by Yang Chen's shocking things again and again. However, after these experiences with Yang Chen, she found that they had a common hobby. Sure Shanshan had a good impression of Yang Chen. After hearing about the things that Yang Chen did, Sure Shanshan was also very appreciative. Unconsciously, the good impression had become deeper and deeper. Until now, Sure Shanshan suddenly discovered that there were many things that she could not say to the elders of the sect, and could not say to the close friends of the sect, but she could actually confide in front of Yang Chen. It had to be said that this was a very surprising change, especially when these changes happened silently. Even Sure Shanshan herself did not realize when she had such a close relationship with Yang Chen. I understand, it's normal. Yang Chen opened the lid of the teapot and poured hot water into the teapot that had been warmed up. After covering the lid and waiting for a while, he picked up the teapot and poured the tea into the fragrance-smelling cup. Yang Chen's tea frying used the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. No impurities or dust could contaminate the tea, so there was no need to wash the tea at all. And this first Dao tea happened to be able to retain all the essence in the tea. After saying this, Yang Chen had already finished a set of movements in his hand. He reached out and made a gesture of please, indicating Sure Shanshan to taste it. Sure Shanshan listened to Yang Chen's words and did not feel anything strange. Everyone would have a heart demon, so Yang Chen would say this, right? She just stretched out her slender hand and buckled the fragrance-smelling cup with skilled movements, then picked it up and put it in front of her nose and turned it carefully, slowly smelling the unique fragrance. The peerless genius that is hard to come by in thousands of years, the cultivation aptitude is good, rare in the world. Yang Chen did the same action, but his mouth did not stop at all, and still continued in the previous cultivation. All the way was irresistible. Even if there was a slight bottleneck, it would be rushed through in a short time. Such an excellent disciple, of course, is the pride of the sect. Once the cultivation base is suddenly unable to break through, it will naturally become a laughingstock in the eyes of others. The genius disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island is just like this. Yang Chen's words made Sure Shanshan stop the movements in her hands and look at Yang Chen with some surprise. She really didn't expect that Yang Chen would actually say her current mentality. The extreme shock directly made Sure Shanshan, the powerhouse in the middle Jedon stage, sit in the same place dumbfounded and could no longer say anything. However, Sure Shanshan. Yang Chen's voice suddenly became louder and more serious. Cold Plum Fairy, don't you think too highly of yourself? Chapter 683. Suddenly speaking of Sure Shanshan's thoughts, in the state of Sure Shanshan's shock, Yang Chen suddenly said this almost like a scolding tone, which instantly angered Sure Shanshan. What did you say? Sure Shanshan's angry voice came directly, and in front of Yang Chen, there was suddenly a flying sword that was shining with cold light. It seemed that as long as the next moment, this flying sword could pass through Yang Chen's head. Yang Chen didn't seem to see this flying sword, and the movements of his hands did not change at all. He calmly smelled the fragrance, then picked up the teacup and tasted it. Facing the beautiful fairy who was almost trembling with anger, he turned a blind eye. After drinking a small cup of tea, Yang Chen added another cup to his teacup and looked up at Sure Shanshan opposite him. Sure Shanshan was cold and elegant, and at this moment her face was frosty with an indescribable charm. If you don't drink, your tea will be cold, Yang Chen reminded her, but he began to pick up the kettle again and began to boil the water. He didn't mention a word about the topic just now. Sure Shanshan's teeth bit her lower lip tightly, and she didn't say a word. The flying sword in her hand was still motionless. She stared at Yang Chen intently, and her eyes almost spurted out fire. What? Not convinced? Yang Chen raised his eyelids and glanced at the angry beauty opposite him. He put it down again. His hands were busy, his tone was steady, and his hands were accurate. It was as if the flying sword in front of him was not a flying sword, but air. The Green Jade Immortal Island is in the mortal world, and several major sects are listed as first-class sections. The masters are like clouds, and they have stood for thousands of years. Presumably, there must be the vast majority of the credit of the Cold Plum Fairy Sure Shanshan. Yang Chen's hands didn't stop, and his mouth didn't stop either. The words were not rushed, and directly made Sure Shanshan on the opposite side forget her anger, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's all the credit of the predecessors. What does it have to do with me? This time, Sure Shanshan was no longer tense, and she retorted. Oh? It turns out that it has nothing to do with you. I thought it was your credit. Yang Chen suddenly realized it, and in the eyes of Sure Shanshan, it looked particularly disgusting. That said, so many predecessors, all of them must have better qualifications than Fairy Sure, and their cultivation base is outstanding, which made the prestige of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen's words turned and suddenly turned back to the relationship between the Green Jade Immortal Island and Sure Shanshan. That's not right. Not waiting for Sure Shanshan to refute, Yang Chen has already taken care of his own words. Cold Plum Fairy Sure Shanshan, isn't she known as a peerless genius that has not appeared in thousands of years? How can there be so many predecessors who can compare with her? No, it's not like this. Looking at Yang Chen talking to himself, Sure Shanshan's heart seemed to have no idea what Yang Chen was going to do, but the hand that was holding the flying sword had already trembled slightly. The affairs of the predecessors have nothing to do with Fairy Sure, so now the prestige of the Green Jade Immortal Island must be related to Fairy Sure. Yang Chen had picked up the teacup again and took a sip gently. After tasting it, he said, "If something happens to the Cold Plum Fairy, it will definitely be a disaster for the Green Jade Immortal Island, isn't it? You're talking nonsense." Even if Sure Shanshan was proud, it was impossible to have such a thought. The Green Jade Immortal Island would never be built on the integrity of her alone. Isn't that the case? Yang Chen looked at Sure Shanshan's trembling delicate body and put on an inexplicable posture. He shrugged his shoulders and suddenly asked, "Then I said that you think too highly of yourself. It seems that I'm not wrong. Who do you think you are? Without you, would the Green Jade Immortal Island disappear into thin air? Wake up, girl, you are not so important." Yang Chen's words seemed to hit the proudest area in Sure Shanshan's heart, and Sure Shanshan's camouflage had been smashed to pieces. Her delicate body shook, and the flying sword in her hand also began to shake with excitement. In this world, no one is the same. Without you, the Cold Plum Fairy, maybe the Green Jade Immortal Island will have one more fairy. Yang Chen's words were like a poisonous snake, directly into the ears of Sure Shanshan. "Girl, you can't represent the Green Jade Immortal Island, and the Green Jade Immortal Island doesn't rely on you to stand. If you cultivate well, it is the icing on the cake for the sect. If your cultivation is poor, it will not make the sect lose face outside. Which sect doesn't have a few unworthy disciples, and I haven't seen which sect can't lift their heads." Sure Shanshan finally put down the flying sword in her hand, and her eyes began to show a trace of confusion. Maybe there was still the last joint that she didn't understand, and it was still troubling her. "Think about it, has the sect asked you for anything?" Yang Chen sighed slightly and continued, "Does the sect require you to reach a certain level of cultivation? Has it said what will happen if you can't reach it? You have already won a lot of face for the sect. At least before I appeared, the record of the Heaven Stairway was still maintained by you, and in less than 200 years, you have reached the threshold of the Middle Jedon stage, which is unprecedented. For the sect, this is already the greatest dignity. After scolding her, Yang Chen certainly had to say something good, lest Shi Shanshan this girl go berserk. In the end, you just think that you have a good aptitude for cultivation, think that you should be smooth sailing, never encounter bottlenecks, so there will be such a heart demon. Yang Chen finally came to a concluding statement. Your real heart demon is not to shame the sect, but to not let your own face go, and there are some empty pride. This was the real heart of Shi Shanshan, or it was to let Shi Shanshan have a correct understanding of her own heart demon. Sitting on the opposite side, Shi Shanshan finally completely put away the flying sword. Her face also showed a serious look of thinking. Well, don't think so much. Yang Chen directly interrupted Shi Shanshan's thinking, as if he was afraid that she was immersed in the world of thinking. I specially made a new tea for you, it would be a pity if you don't taste it. Shi Shanshan was awakened, and after being stunned for a while, she immediately showed a look of understanding. She was a smart person, and immediately realized the intention of Yang Chen. He did not want her to entangle on this issue. The famous cold plum fairy, of course, was also a person who could pick up and put down, and soon realized her problem. At the moment, she no longer continued to entangle. Her slender fingers picked up the teacup, and the slightly cold new tea in it was put into her mouth. Tasting the wonderful taste of the tea full of gung metal spirit power, Shi Shanshan closed her eyes for a long time, then she opened her eyes and looked at Yang Chen's expectant eyes, waiting for her evaluation. Her eyes showed a naughty look that was different from her previous frosty eyes, and suddenly said, "The tea is cold." Chapter 684. Knowing the root of the problem, in fact, for a master like Shi Shanshan, there was no such thing as a heart demon. Shi Shanshan relaxed in an instant, and her heart was at peace. There was no longer the kind of eagerness she had before. The man in front of her once again gave her a huge surprise. Shi Shanshan looked at Yang Chen's eyes full of appreciation. If the two were not familiar with each other, this gaze would be appreciation. The two were now obviously in a relationship of Taoist companions outside. If outsiders saw it, it would be full of affection. After changing the hot tea, Shi Shanshan enjoyed the wonderful taste of tea easily for a long time. Even after drinking it, she could immediately feel the spiritual power in her body surging, as if she was about to break through. The questioning inner heart pill you gave to Blue Cloud sect this time seems to be of good quality. Shi Shanshan calmed down, and the content of the conversation began to shift from herself to the sect. The island master and several elders feel that they are at a disadvantage. You can't blame me for this. Yang Chen smiled as if he didn't care about this matter at all. He explained very casually, you also know that practice makes perfect. If you refine the same kind of elixir many times, you will definitely be more skilled. Isn't it normal for the quality to improve? The sect is also building a hall of eccentrics recently. Shi Shanshan did not dwell on this issue. In fact, Yang Chen's explanation could be explained everywhere without any flaws. As the topic changed, Shi Shanshan turned to another direction. Chunyang Palace seems to be ahead of everyone this time. However, the Taishaman's big move is to directly recruit suitable monster clan members to join the sect to expand the strength of the sect. It's normal. The Taishaman's strength has been greatly damaged some time ago. If they don't replenish their strength as soon as possible, they will be squeezed out by several major sects. As if chatting with Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen said in a natural tone, let alone the demon race. If the demon race agrees to join the Taishaman and is obedient, the Taishaman will probably accept them. Are you sure? A voice suddenly interjected without any warning. It was the voice of the Lord Tantai. Greetings, Island Master. When Shi Shanshan heard the voice, she hurriedly stood up and greeted. Yang Chen did not hesitate and stood up to salute. Sit, don't stand on ceremony. When the Lord of Tantai saw Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan sitting opposite each other and sipping tea, he revealed a very happy expression. He sat down on the original main seat and raised his head, gesturing to the two, and said, "What kind of good tea is it? Let this old one have a taste." Sure Shanshan quickly prepared a tea set again. Then, she poured away the tea that had been brewed before and replaced it with a new batch of tea. Only then did she respectfully brew the tea, and bring it to the island master with both hands. The Lord of Tantai did not stand on ceremony. He reached out and picked up the teacup skillfully. He held the teacup and sniffed it for a while. A hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. Then, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. As soon as the tea entered his mouth, he noticed the difference. Not to mention the fragrance of the tea, the golden heptachi could not be hidden from the Lord of Tantai no matter what. Even the Lord of Tantai admired Yang Chen's tea-frying technique. He praised it the moment he opened his mouth. "You're really good at frying tea." However, there was another hidden meaning in the words of the Lord of Tantai. Perhaps it was because of the extra golden heptachi. "Yang Chen, why do you think that the Taishaman will recruit the demon clan wantonly?" After the Lord of Tantai praised the tea, he immediately asked curiously. "Because sometimes the demon clan is more reliable than humans." In the face of the Lord of Tantai's question, Yang Chen did not have any stage fright. He did not have the restraint caused by the huge gap between the two of them. He spoke with confidence and assurance. When the demon clan joins the sect, they can make them swear with their demon soul that they will never betray the sect. However, when cultivators enter the sect, there are very few such practices. Speaking of which, the demon clan is more reliable than humans. Chunyang Palace was the first to accept the demon clan. The Hall of Eccentrics was created by Chunyang Palace. Naturally, Chunyang Palace had the most say. Although the other sect had accepted the setting of the Hall of Eccentrics and were also looking for suitable candidates, it was not easy to find suitable demon clan members in a short time. Speaking of which, Chunyang Palace had the most understanding of the demon clan. Yang Chen's words also made the Lord of Tantai feel a little emotional. As the master of a sect, she knew better than anyone how difficult it was to manage a huge sect. If all the disciples were as simple as the demon clan, perhaps it would not be so troublesome. Unfortunately, things did not go as one wished. Not everyone would put the interests of the sect before their personal interests. Sometimes the demon clan is simple-minded, but they are easier to manage than cultivators. Although the understanding of the demon clan was not deep enough, the Lord of Tantai believed that Yang Chen would not lie to her at this point, and said with emotion, "Yang Chen, do you know? In fact, the cooperation between my Green Jade, Immortal Island and Chunyang Palace, there are still many people in the sect who oppose it. Since the Island Lord has already cooperated with Chunyang Palace, presumably these problems are no longer a problem." Yang Chen responded with a smile. The Lord of Tantai said this to him. In fact, there was some unequal status, and it should be said to the head of the palace. Those who object, after seeing the questioning inner heart pills, have no reason to object. The Lord of Tantai smiled, and the expression on his face was very relaxed. Now they are eager to cooperate a few more times. After getting the batch of questioning inner heart pills refined by Yang Chen, the power of the Lord of Tantai in the sect had increased a lot. The power of the questioning inner heart pills was now clear to everyone, especially in this batch of questioning inner heart pills. There were a few second-grade questioning inner heart pills, which made people even more jealous. How to distribute each questioning inner heart pill was decided by the Lord of Tantai and several elders who agreed to cooperate at that time. The few elders who opposed the most, including Li Qingchen's old aunt Elderly, now had to temporarily lower their heads, otherwise they would not have a share of the questioning inner heart pills. No one would like their cultivation base to be low and their future to be poor. The questioning inner heart pill could make their cultivation base that had been stagnant. This has been proved by many people. The most recent example is Wang Yong. If they were all elders and others had the questioning inner heart pill but they did not because of opposition, wouldn't they be wronged? With this big killing weapon, the Lord of Tantai's life was much better now. and he was even more grateful to Yang Chen. Therefore, as soon as he heard that Yang Chen was coming, the Lord of Tantai directly rushed to Shi Shanshan's side, even without Yang Chen going to visit. Anyway, she could use the pretense of caring for the younger generation, and no one could say no. I heard that you have now refined a kind of monster race medicinal pill? The Lord of Tantai asked with a smile. Inner sensing pill. Can you let this old body see it? Chapter 685. How difficult is this? Yang Chen, in front of the Lord of Tantai and Shi Shanshan, directly took out 2 first-grade inner sensing pills, one for each person, and placed it in front of the 2. Taste it, the taste of the monster race, the taste is not bad. When these words came out, it directly made the Lord of Tantai and Shi Shanshan smile bitterly. This was tasting the medicinal pill. It was clearly regarded as something like a local snack, which made people not know whether to laugh or cry. But both women knew that this inner sensing pill was not a too precious thing. No one cared, and very casually picked up one and sent it into their mouth. The Lord of Tantai was fine. She was already a master of the yuanying stage, and the effect of this inner sensing pill on her was not so significant. But Shi Shanshan was completely different. Shi Shanshan was trapped in the bottleneck of the middle Jedan stage, and she could not break through for a long time. Before the time of incense, she was under the combination of Yang Chen's questioning and scolding. She figured out some things and vaguely overcame her own heart devil. Now she immediately took an inner sensing pill, and suddenly entered the realm of observing herself. The situation of the whole body's qi and blood spirit power instantly appeared in the mind of Shi Shanshan. She has never experienced this kind of internal inspection of her own body. With a medicinal pill, the advantages and disadvantages of her own cultivation suddenly became clear. So that's how it is. Shi Shanshan returned to normal after a long time, but she still couldn't help but recall the clear feeling. But her mind from time to time compared the changes in her own body, and the harvest was quite a lot. So that's how it is. The Lord of Tantai was also the first time to eat the inner sensing pill refined by Yang Chen. Although it was not of much use to her, she immediately had an intuitive understanding of the effect of the inner sensing pill on the masters below the yuanying stage. Although the green jade Immortal Island has already obtained the pill recipe of the inner sensing pill, after all, not every alchemist was Yang Chen. This new medicinal pill of the monster race not only required hundreds of years of medicinal materials, but also the refining was related to some of the habits of the monster race. It could not be refined in a short time. Even if it was refined, it could only be regarded as a semi-finished product. It was completely incomparable to Yang Chen's perfect first-grade inner sensing pill. The Lord of Tantai had tried the inner sensing pill refined by the alchemist of the sect. Compared with the effect of Yang Chen's pill, it was like heaven and earth. It seemed that the sect still had a long way to go if they wanted to successfully refine the inner sensing pill. The first-grade inner sensing pill has such an effect. What about the second-grade inner sensing pill? The Lord Tantai immediately realized the power of the second-grade inner sensing pill. A lot of things, if you don't experience it yourself, you can't understand the real thing only by relying on legends. Although he had already heard that Su Qingxin relied on the second-grade inner sensing pill to break through to the peak Jedan stage, the Lord of Tantai still had to discount this rumor. Moreover, the dignified green jade Immortal Island could not be held by a second-rate sect. It was better to be self-sufficient. But now the Lord of Tantai was suppressed by the medicinal pill refined by Yang Chen. The same pill recipe, the same medicinal materials, but the alchemist was different, which led to the difference in the effect of the medicinal pill. This was only the first-grade inner sensing pill. If he wanted to refine the second-grade inner sensing pill, he didn't know how long it would take. It seemed that on the road of medicinal pills, the Chunyang Palace was always leading the way. Every time it was a little faster than several major sects, but several major sects had to follow behind them. This feeling was very irritating. In the end, was the Green Jade Immortal Island Blue Cloud sect Taishaman 5 Elements sect a first-class sect, or was Chunyang Palace a first-class sect? But his own disciple was not good enough, so he couldn't blame others. Perhaps for this inner sensing pill, we can also cooperate again. The Lord of Tantai immediately made a decision. Since he was now an ally with the Chunyang Palace, then he should play the greatest value of an ally. With such a good thing, he could not let outsiders benefit. This junior has no problem, the island master can discuss it with the head of the palace at any time. Of course, Yang Chen would not refuse. This was one of the purposes of him taking out these medicinal pills, to gain more allies for the Chunyang Palace, and to consolidate the existing alliance relationship. For Yang Chen's attitude, the Lord of Tantai was very satisfied. After tasting another cup of tea, he asked Yang Chen's intention. Want to know about the elixirs in the sea? When the Lord of Tantai heard this request, he couldn't help but secretly nod in his heart. No wonder Yang Chen was so outstanding in the way of alchemy. There were not many people who studied the elixirs in the sea. Even the Green Jade Immortal Island has been located on the sea, and the people who really studied the elixirs in the sea were only a few dozen people. Most people were still inheriting the ready-made way of alchemy and striving for a breakthrough. Yang Chen was still in the Jedon realm, and he had already begun to study the elixirs in the sea. This vision was much higher than many people. However, even if many people understood that the elixirs in the sea also had a lot of research space, but compared to the dangers in the sea, most people still chose to give up when they faced it. After all, most alchemists had a fire attribute spirit root, and finding elixirs in the sea was not what they were good at. Although the cultivators of the water attribute were relatively free in the sea, they could not refine elixirs, which was one of the reasons why there was less research on marine elixirs. But in any case, this small request of Yang Chen could still be met. Although there were not many people in the Green Jade Immortal Island who studied it, after years of accumulation, there was also a deep research. These things are all the secrets of my sect. Although the Lord of Tantai did not embarrass Yang Chen, some words still had to be said in the front. You can look at it, but you can't take it out of the sect. This younger generation junior will comply. This request was too reasonable, and Yang Chen did not intend to pack up the information of others and take it away. However, as long as he saw it once, he could almost remember it. It didn't matter where he saw it. If my sect needs you to work alone in the future, you can't refuse too quickly. The Lord of Tantai followed up with the second request. In fact, this could not be a requirement at all. Hiring a senior alchemist was a very normal thing. As long as the price of the two sides was negotiated, there was no problem of refusing or not. Unless the two sides had a life and death hatred, like Yang Chen and the Taishaman, it was impossible to agree. The Green Jade Immortal Island and Yang Chen had a close relationship, so there should be no such problem. There is a lot of information. If you are willing, just wait here in Shanshan, I will send someone to bring you the things. The Lord of Tantai smiled and got up to leave, and at the same time made the last request. If there are disciples of my sect who come to ask for advice during this time, you can try to guide them as long as it does not violate the rules of Chunyang Palace. Chapter 686. Relatively speaking, these conditions were not harsh. After all, Yang Chen wanted the accumulation of the Green Jade Immortal Island for generations, and he couldn't do it without paying a little price. Yang Chen didn't object, and he had no reason to object. Sure, Shanshan didn't seem to have changed much, but her temperament was different from when he first met her. It seemed that after a short tea chat with Yang Chen, she had completely untied the knot in her heart and overcome her heart devil. The Lord of Tantai's movements were very fast. In less than 2 hours, several disciples brought thousands of jade slip. They were handed over to Yang Chen one by one. Although there were relatively few people who studied this area, after thousands of years of accumulation, the achievements were also extremely considerable. Thousands of jade slips were not so exaggerated. When Sir Shanshan saw so many jade slips, she didn't say anything and directly ordered her servants to clean up a quiet room for Yang Chen and settle him down so that Yang Chen could read with peace of mind. It's just that, in this way, it was not known how many people hated Yang Chen. Although the relationship between Yang Chen and Sir Shanshan was already famous in the world, after all, it was only a simple contact. Things like Yang Chen living directly in Sir Shanshan's boudoir had never happened. Even if Yang Chen only lived in Sir Shanshan's courtyard, he would be misunderstood. If it weren't for the Lord of Tantai's strict order not to harass Yang Chen without authorization, there would be many young disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island who would come to the door and compete with Yang Chen. He didn't need people to accompany him to read. Yang Chen knew that Sir Shanshan's heart devil had just calmed down and he didn't point it out. He took a second-grade questioning inner heart pill and wrapped it with an ordinary qi nourishing pill and let Sir Shanshan eat it. Sir Shanshan certainly wouldn't suspect that Yang Chen would harm her. Although it seemed very awkward for Yang Chen to let her swallow a medicinal pill, she still did not refuse. In front of Yang Chen, she took the qi-nourishing pill that wrapped the second-grade questioning inner heart pill. Soon, Sir Shanshan noticed that something was wrong. When she realized it, Yang Chen had already smiled and signaled her to retreat. Sir Shanshan wanted to make it clear to Yang Chen, but this second-grade questioning inner heart pill was too precious. After Yang Chen said the name of the medicinal pill, Sir Shanshan could no longer care about anything else and quickly entered the state of retreat. Yang Chen was in the quiet room arranged by Sir Shanshan and looked at the jade slips one by one. Because the research on marine elixirs was not very systematic, the records of these jade slips were also very mixed. The bottom of the sea was different from the surface, because the influence of the oceanic currents and spiritual veins was much more than on the surface. Moreover, in the ocean, most of them were based on the water attribute, and the research direction was very biased. These were all things that some of the predecessors of the Green Jade Immortal Island had spent a lot of time accumulating. Yang Chen didn't dare to ignore it at all. Every piece of jade slip was very carefully. Although the things recorded on the jade slip were not comprehensive and the content was not much, Yang Chen always spent a long time studying it. Often, he had to connect it with what he saw on the bottom of the sea and think for a long time. Many of these marine elixirs were unconfirmed. For some things, Yang Chen couldn't be sure whether they were right or wrong. He could only verify them one by one in the future. Every time he read, if Yang Chen found the elixirs that he had seen or collected, he would study them with a Zhu and a Bai. The two women also happened to be carefully observing the elixirs in the medicine garden, whether they were as recorded on these jade slips. The days were very fulfilling. There were two foundation stage disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island who always accompanied Yang Chen. Every time Yang Chen finished reading a piece of jade slip, they would take back a piece and then always report to someone. What made Yang Chen most satisfied was that the elixirs recorded on every piece of jade slip that Yang Chen wanted to see. When Yang Chen began to read, the two disciples would always bring him the real thing. Those that Yang Chen hadn't gotten for the time being would also be sent to him. Yang Chen did not resist such an arrangement. He thought that the Lord of Tantai's final so-called consultation would actually be on these marine elixirs. He didn't know much before. He believed that after a period of time, when Yang Chen had learned enough, someone would come to discuss with him. This was no wonder. After all, the Green Jade Immortal Island was on the sea, and there were ready-made seabed elixirs. It would definitely not be wasted. It was a pity that there were few people among them who were really proficient in alchemy, so the speed of research would be very slow. With Yang Chen, a senior alchemist master, he might soon be able to add several new kinds of medicinal pills to the Green Jade Immortal Island. With the real thing, Yang Chen understood more intuitively, and after confirming that these elixirs were non-toxic, Yang Chen would always taste some himself to try the medicinal properties. This work was recorded on many jade slips, but Yang Chen didn't dare to believe it easily. He had to confirm it himself before he could confirm it. However, he also found several things that were different from the records on the jade slip. Shi Shanshan had been in retreat, and the Lord of Tantai came once in the middle, when Yang Chen had read most of the jade slips. As soon as she saw the state of Shi Shanshan, she guessed what happened. She looked at Yang Chen with a kind smile for a long time, and then left with satisfaction. Subsequently, Yang Chen welcomed several alchemist masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island. These alchemist masters, there were men and women, old and young, Yuanying stage masters, Jedon stage masters, and Foundation stage disciples. However, everyone was very respectful to Yang Chen, and they did not neglect him because his cultivation base was not high. The guy who could refine the second-grade questioning inner heart pill, in the eyes of the alchemist masters, not to mention the Jedon stage master, even if he was just a Foundation stage disciple, or even a Qi refining disciple, he was also a senior alchemist master respected by everyone. Several alchemist masters almost put on a posture of humbly asking for advice, and often discussed with Yang Chen on the understanding of certain marine elixirs. They have all studied these marine elixirs, and some things were very familiar. However, in terms of understanding the medicinal properties, they were much worse than Yang Chen. Every time there was a dispute, Yang Chen always inadvertently used one or several kinds of elixirs that could be picked on land as examples. They were all things with similar medicinal properties, and the 5 elements were slightly different. And every time at this time, Yang Chen could find that one or several alchemist masters would secretly write down these conclusions of Yang Chen. This situation lasted for almost a year. Yang Chen has read all the jade slips and also communicated with these alchemist masters about many of the things in them. Even Yang Chen used a few of the elixirs to refine a water attribute qi replenishing pill and Peiyuan pill to prove his point of view. The posture of lifting heavy things as if it was light made several alchemist masters admire him. Chapter 687. The news that Yang Chen was studying the seabed elixir in the Green Jade Immortal Island was intentionally or unintentionally revealed by the Green Jade Immortal Island. On the one hand, this was not a confidential matter, so there was no need to be sneaky. On the other hand, some of the guys from the Green Jade Immortal Island who were not pleasing to the eye with Yang Chen did not seem to have the obligation to keep this secret. After a comprehensive balance, the Lord of Tantai still took the initiative to spread the news. For the people of Chunyang Palace, when they heard that Yang Chen was in the Green Jade Immortal Island, they would also be relieved about the safety of Yang Chen. However, if they knew from other channels instead of the news released by the island master, they might have other ideas. This was also one of the factors considered by the Lord of Tantai. This news seemed to have aroused great interest in the outside world. Everyone knew that the sea was rich in resources, but the ones who could really control the sea resources, in addition to the big sect like the Green Jade Immortal Island, were several large rogue cultivator alliances, and they were still far away from the Central Plains. Cultivators have always expected to be able to fully utilize the rich resources of the sea, but there has been no good way. And what did Yang Chen mean by doing such a high-profile exercise of the elixir in the sea at this time? People who knew Yang Chen's character believed that he was indeed learning to study marine elixirs. Those who didn't know Yang Chen began to wonder if Yang Chen had obtained some secret knowledge and could already use these marine elixirs. Thinking of the fact that Yang Chen liked to read some miscellaneous books, many people were interested in Yang Chen again. Maybe this was another miscellaneous book that he got benefits from. Who could have thought that it was just a request from Yang Chen's 2 medicine gardens? Some people immediately began to plan how to get benefits from it, and more greedy guys began to plan how to take these things that Yang Chen got for themselves. Yang Chen, who was in the Green Jade Immortal Island, of course, did not care about the thoughts of these people. The reason why he stayed in the Green Jade Immortal Island was that he was waiting for Sher Shanshan to complete her retreat. After a year, Sher Shanshan finally woke up from her seclusion. As soon as she opened her eyes, Sher Shanshan's eyes emitted a faintly discernible light. The haggard and worried look on Yang Chen's face when they first met had long disappeared. What replaced it was Sher Shanshan's confident and strong gaze. Not to mention the second-grade questioning inner heart pill, even the first-grade questioning inner heart pill could easily pass the bottleneck of a master of the Deshang stage, not to mention that Sher Shanshan was only in the middle Jedon stage. After Yang Chen persuaded Sher Shanshan, she had almost no psychological pressure. Even if there was no questioning inner heart pill, the breakthrough was a matter of time, and it would not take more than 5 years. Now, with the help of the second-grade questioning inner heart pill, in just 1 year, Sher Shanshan directly jumped over the previous bottleneck and completely entered the realm of the late Jedon stage. It had to be said that Sher Shanshan's aptitude for cultivation was simply rare in the world. After entering the Jedon stage for less than 120 years, she has continuously broken through the threshold of the early Jedon stage and the middle Jedon stage and entered the late Jedon stage. The speed of her cultivation was even faster than that of Gong's Sunling in the memory of his previous life. The second-grade questioning inner heart pill, he believed that Sher Shanshan would not talk about it, and the Lord of Tantai seemed to see something, but she would never think of it as the second-grade questioning inner heart pill. At most, she thought it was the first-grade questioning inner heart pill. Yang Chen has not left, just waiting for Sher Shanshan to wake up. Of course, this was only part of the reason, the other part was to wait for some guys with bad intentions. In fact, in the late stage, it was not only a few alchemy masters who came to Yang Chen to consult, but also some curious disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen promised the Lord of Tantai that as long as it did not involve the rules of the Chunyang Palace, other aspects would be as convenient as possible. The questions of these people were varied, and most of them were related to alchemy. However, several times Yang Chen received a few very strange inquiries. The other party took some different ancient characters, and all of them were characters from 10,000 years ago, and asked for advice in front of Yang Chen, asking if Yang Chen could recognize them. These ancient characters, Yang Chen recognized a large part of them. In order not to expose their true intentions, the people who asked for advice took great pains, and several low-level disciples brought several different jade slips to ask for advice. Every piece of jade slip was a real antique, and it could not be faked at all. The things left by those immortals on the immortal executioner stage were tens of thousands of years old. Therefore, Yang Chen did work hard in this regard. The inheritance obtained in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave also made Yang Chen more familiar with the mastery of ancient characters. In the jade slip that was brought over and asked Yang Chen to point out, there was nothing too important recorded. A cultivation method from a long time ago, now it has been improved, and a pill recipe was also meaningless. There was also something similar to a storybook. 3 jade slips, 3 kinds of characters, each of which was from a different era. When Yang Chen accurately told the disciples who came to ask for advice about the contents of several jade slips, the disciples showed considerable disappointment. This seemed very normal. Everyone wanted to get some good things from the ancient jade slips, but when they found out that it was just a bunch of meaningless cultivation methods and pill recipes, there would be such disappointment. However, this behavior made Yang Chen puzzled. Few people would study this kind of ancient characters, unless, like Yang Chen, he had received the inheritance of the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave. But how could a few low-level disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island have such an opportunity? Could it be that they were also learning from Yang Chen and reading all kinds of classics? It must be said that because of the emergence of Yang Chen, now every sect has consciously invested a lot of manpower in some miscellaneous books, hoping to be like Yang Chen and be able to discover some major secret. Especially like the Blue Cloud sect, which has already benefited, they spared no effort to promote it. But how could this kind of thing be brought to Yang Chen for advice? It was really puzzling. The performance of those disciples seemed normal, but Yang Chen believed that they just wanted to confirm if Yang Chen knew some ancient characters. After understanding this, Yang Chen didn't care. These people were at most throwing stones to find out the way, they were not the real masterminds, it was not worth his time. Waiting for Shi Shanshan to wake up was to let her deal with this matter. If these disciples were inspired by the Green Jade Immortal Island, it would be fine, but if they worked for other sect, it would not be such a wonderful thing for the Green Jade Immortal Island. And Yang Chen still firmly believed that those people must be the latter. The Green Jade Immortal Island also seemed to have the tragedy of the traitorous disciples. Chapter 688. When Shi Shanshan woke up, of course, there was a complaint. However, this complaint was also sweet in her heart. She just felt that Yang Chen should not have used such a precious elixir for her to take. Yang Chen was not surprised by this. After exchanging tea with Shi Shanshan again, Yang Chen told Shi Shanshan about the performance of those people. Yang Chen was only suspicious. As a disciple of Chunyang Palace, in the territory of the Green Jade Immortal Island, of course, he couldn't do anything to the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island. He just told Shi Shanshan about his suspicions. Shi Shanshan didn't say anything, she went directly to the Lord of Tantai and told Yang Chen's suspicions. After listening to Shi Shanshan's retelling, the Lord of Tantai also began to ponder. Ancient texts were actually very common, but the general cultivation methods and pill recipes had been improved, and there was not much significance. Few people would pay attention to this aspect, but since the various sects began to pay attention to those miscellaneous books, they have discovered a lot of these, and many sects have begun to study them. However, no matter how much they studied, they didn't know as much as Yang Chen, who had directly faced those ancient characters. In his previous life in the heavenly court, Yang Chen had come into contact with a lot of antique. Those people also taught Yang Chen a lot of things in this regard. In terms of Yang Chen, he was absolutely the authority. This was not worthy of too much suspicion, but these disciples got these ancient text jade slips, not to consult the disciples of the sect who specialized in these studies, but to find Yang Chen, an outsider, which was too suspicious. In the second half of the year that Yang Chen began to answer later, no less than 1,000 people had communicated with Yang Chen and asked for advice. But the Lord of Tantai had already arranged that the questions asked by everyone were recorded by a special disciple, who had asked for advice on ancient texts. They would know at a glance. No one would have noticed that the two disciples who had been accompanying Yang Chen had actually played such a role in the dark. Everyone thought that the two disciples were supervising Yang Chen, fearing that he would tamper with the ancient books of the sect. Therefore, no one was too cautious. A disciple of the sect had obtained an ancient jade slip, but instead of consulting someone from within the sect, he went to consult someone from outside the sect. There was definitely something fishy going on. Very soon, the Lord of Tantai found out the identity of these disciples. He also learned from the disciples who specialized in studying ancient texts that these guys had never asked them for any relevant content. That would be interesting. After obtaining the ancient jade slip, he would look for Yang Chen to appraise it. Moreover, they were all insignificant things, but they were related to a few ancient characters. Perhaps the Lord of Tantai would have to investigate them carefully. The Green Jade Immortal Island was an ally. Yang Chen certainly hoped that the stronger the ally, the better. These troublemakers, one less is one less. Yang Chen had a hunch that these people must be Taishaman. He didn't know what ancient inheritance they had discovered, but they didn't know the characters, so they came to test Yang Chen. The reason why he was so suspicious was that after killing the 6 Yuanying stage masters, until now, the spiritual awareness imprint had not vibrated, which could only explain one thing: the other party had temporarily given up the pursuit. Combined with the ancient text, it seemed that the reason was obvious. In any case, He knew some ancient texts, and this reputation had been spread by those people. Yang Chen now seemed to be waiting for someone to come to his door. After staying in the Green Jade Immortal Island for a year, Shi Shanshan has now solved her own troubles. Yang Chen wanted the information of the Green Jade Immortal Island's marine elixirs, and it was time to leave. In the eyes of Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen was also in a hurry. It seemed that he knew that she had a heart devil, so he specially came to give her guidance. As for the second-grade questioning inner heart pill at that moment, Shi Shanshan didn't know what to say. She could only firmly remember Yang Chen's intention in her heart. It seems that there is still that faint feeling between the two, but there is a lot more tacit understanding. When Yang Chen mentioned leaving, Shi Shanshan just said oh and didn't say much. She calmly sent him away from the Green Jade Immortal Island, and he didn't know what she was thinking. Leaving the Green Jade Immortal Island, Yang Chen did not plunge into the water. After all, this was a polite departure, not an escape, and he couldn't do it too impolite. From the mountain gate of the Green Jade Immortal Island to bid farewell to Shi Shanshan, Yang Chen slowly sat on the sailboat formed by the flying shuttle. After driving for 100 miles, suddenly his hands turned over and the first wood flying sword appeared in his hands in an instant. With the sudden dull bell sound on Yang Chen's body, the green flying sword directly cut through the sea and pierced into the sea. Under the influence of the bell sound, the calm sea instantly emitted countless huge ripples and spread wildly around. A figure like a ghost rushed out of the sea and rushed straight to Yang Chen. The speed of Yang Chen's flying sword seemed to be a bit slower. It just flew past the feet of the other party, but the other party's flying sword directly turned into a flying goose and flew to Yang Chen's chest. "Elderly, how are you?" Yang Chen's sword missed, but it was not surprising. The first wood flying sword was not good at flying speed. The other party was a Yuanying stage master. It was very normal for him to be able to avoid it. However, the other party was able to ignore the bell sound of the golden bell, which made Yang Chen a little surprised. The person who appeared was an old acquaintance of Yang Chen, elder Li Junyu of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Her descendant Li Qinchen was a disciple of the Taishanman. Because he competed with Yang Chen for Shi Shanshan, he used some undignified means and was eventually beheaded by Yang Chen in a duel of life and death. The two sides also became enemies because of this. Although Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island were now allied, Yang Chen did not feel that this kind of grievance could be resolved. Perhaps the two sides would not fight openly in the territory of the Green Jade Immortal Island, but when there were only two people, it would definitely be a life and death ending. Kid, don't think that you can refine a few medicinal pills and you don't put the world in your eyes. Li Junyu did not hide the killing intent of Yang Chen and said fiercely, "Today is the day you die." As soon as the voice fell, her flying sword fell on Yang Chen's chest. Buzz, the dull chime of the bell sounded again. Yang Chen's body did not move at all. On the contrary, Li Junyu's flying sword stood on Yang Chen's body and did not make any progress. Instead, it was bounced off by Yang Chen's body. It turned out to be a body protection magic weapon? Li Junyu snorted coldly, and suddenly her figure flickered and quickly flew away from the place. Under the seawater around Yang Chen, dozens of 10th water divine thunder suddenly emerged. It was not known when a batch was suspended in the sky, and there were at least a dozen underwater. Yang Chen's body was already covered with 10th water divine thunder. Li Junyu, who had already flown away, showed a grin on her face. Looking at Yang Chen still standing in the same place, she moved her mind and dozens of 10th water divine thunder blasted at the same time, instantly drowning Yang Chen in it. Chapter 689. Li Junyu was a Yuanying stage master of the water attribute. The last time Li Qinchen and Yang Chen fought a life and death duel, Li Junyu gave Li Qinchen a 10th water divine thunder that she refined herself, so that she could find an opportunity to kill Yang Chen. Now it was Li Junyu doing it herself. She had done a lot of homework on Yang Chen before. Because of Li Qingchen's relationship, Li Junyu also had a group of friends in Taishimen, and she knew that Yang Chen was not easy to deal with. Before starting, Li Junyu refined a batch of 10th Water Divine Thunder. It took Li Junyu 10 years to refine this batch of 10th Water Divine Thunder. It was to directly give Yang Chen a hard time on occasions like this. Yang Chen used a similar method to deal with the Yuanying stage master Lu Wei of Taishimen before, but it was not the 10th Water Divine Thunder, but the Thunder Pomegranate. Unexpectedly, the wheel of fortune had turned, and now he was being used against him by the 10th Water Divine Thunder. In order to kill him in one blow, Li Junyu used her brain. Originally, it was not easy to find a chance for Yang Chen to be alone. Unexpectedly, Yang Chen took the initiative to come to the door and stayed in the Green Jade Immortal Island for a whole year, which allowed Li Junyu to arrange everything very easily and catch up with Yang Chen. There were dozens of 10th Water Divine Thunder in the air and dozens in the water. Whether Yang Chen was in the sky or in the sea, there were enough Divine Thunder to greet him. These Divine Thunder were all refined with Li Junyu's Yuanying stage cultivation base. The power was so great that almost every one of them could be comparable to those that blew up the Chunyang Palace Gate. Even if it was replaced by a master of the Yuanying stage, facing such an attack, it was enough to be killed several times. Yang Chen was just a little Jedon stage early stage. Even if he had the ability to reach the heavens, even if he had a powerful body protection magic weapon, it would be difficult for him to escape death. At the moment when the Divine Thunder exploded, on Elder Li Junyu's face, she couldn't see her usual gentle expression at all. There was only a hideous smile with a creepy smile. Humph. Senior Sister Tantai, do you think that as long as you win over this kid, your position as the island master will be impregnable? Li Junyu looked at the almost empty sea, and the ferocious expression on her face finally eased. She sneered and said to herself, I want to see how many people will support you without this brat. Floating above the sea, Li Junyu slowly flew to where Yang Chen had originally been. She opened up her divine sense and tried to find Yang Chen's corpse. However, Li Junyu also knew that this seemed to be an extravagant hope. Under dozens of gray water divine thunder, even steel would turn into powder. Yang Chen, a small Jedon stage cultivator, could still leave a trace. It was simply impossible. Not to mention the corpse, even Yang Chen's flying sword and his powerful protective magical equipment did not seem to leave any trace. It was as if Yang Chen had not appeared in this world at all. Li Junyu was still not at ease. Within the surrounding dozens of miles, she still carefully searched. She must confirm the death of Yang Chen. Otherwise, whether it was the Green Jade Immortal Island or the Taishimen, it would be hard to explain. Within this sea area, Li Junyu has arranged a large-scale warning array. As long as a cultivator and a monster of a certain cultivation base break in, she would be able to know instantly. If Yang Chen escaped from here, she would definitely be able to sense it. But what made Li Junyu feel strange was that she couldn't feel any signs of the array. This gave Li Junyu a bad premonition. Was the array she had arranged destroyed by the 10th Water Divine Thunder? However, the explosion range of dozens of 10th Water Divine Thunder should not affect the warning array, right? Quickly controlling her own flying sword, Li Junyu flew towards the edge of the array she had arranged. The distance of dozens of miles could be reached in less than an incense worth of time. Li Junyu's heart sank very quickly. The array formation that she had set up had disappeared without a trace. If it was not destroyed by the 10th Water Divine Thunder, then there was only one possibility: it was destroyed by Yang Chen. Suddenly, Li Junyu suddenly discovered the aura of Yang Chen. A faintly discernible and weak consciousness was fleeing into the distance. The speed was not fast, but it was just a little faster than Li Junyu's own flying sword. With a long breath, Li Junyu immediately urged her full strength and chased after Yang Chen. Such a weak spiritual awareness could only explain one thing, that is, Yang Chen had been seriously injured. This was reasonable, Under the explosion of dozens of 10th water divine thunder at the same time, it was impossible for a small Jedon stage cultivator to be safe and sound. Serious injuries were the normal state. She didn't know what method Yang Chen used to silently break the warning array she had personally arranged. It was a clever method. However, no matter how clever the method was, it was hard to escape death today. Seriously injured, how could Li Junyu give Yang Chen a chance to recuperate? If she didn't make a move, she would kill him and leave no future trouble. Li Junyu dared to make a move 100 miles away from the gate of the Green Jade Immortal Island. This was her idea. Even if the Lord of Tantai and the others knew about it, what was done could not be undone, and they couldn't do anything to her. With the death of Yang Chen, the Green Jade Immortal Island and Chunyang Palace would inevitably become enemies of life and death. This could be guessed by everyone. Yang Chen was so important to Chunyang Palace that no matter who touched Yang Chen, they would become the target of Chunyang Palace's desperate attack. Luo Yuan, who caught up with Yang Chen last time, was an example. Thinking of Luo Yuan, Li Junyu's heart suddenly trembled. Luo Yuan was in the late Deshang stage, and he could not catch up with Yang Chen, who was in the foundation stage. It seemed that Yang Chen had a magic weapon with fast speed. If Yang Chen used it, it was estimated that Li Junyu herself would be helpless. Fortunately, it seemed that the magic weapon had been damaged. At least Yang Chen's current weak spiritual awareness movement speed was not fast, only a little faster than her. As long as she tried a little hard to keep up, after Yang Chen's spiritual power was exhausted, he would naturally slow down. A seriously injured Jedon Stage Junior, and a Yuanying Stage Master who had no consumption of spiritual power, could only struggle to survive. Let him live for a few more days, and she could also enjoy the process of chasing Yang Chen for some time. In front of Li Junyu's eyes, it seemed that after Yang Chen desperately fled for an unknown number of days, he was finally caught up by himself. He was flustered and exasperated, but he could do nothing to wait for death. Or the ugly appearance of kneeling and begging for mercy after being caught up. The feeling of revenge was simply too cool. Thinking of this, Li Junyu was in a good mood. She looked at the direction of Yang Chen's escape, drove the flying sword, and followed the aura of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness and chased up. Perhaps this was a typical game of cat and mouse. The more Li Junyu thought about it, the more proud she was, and even the speed of the flying sword was a lot faster because of her thoughts. Chapter 690. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was taken back from the Mountain River geographical map. Then he shook his head silently, sighed and put the Mountain River geographical map into the merit ring. At the moment of Li Junyu's attack, Yang Chen began to frantically find a way to deal with it. Dozens of 10th water divine thunder, relying on the protection of the dome and the golden bell, Yang Chen could not guarantee that he could take it. The golden bell may be able to, but it was definitely not something that Yang Chen could do with only the first layer of sacrificial refining. The material would never be bad, but it could not guarantee that Yang Chen would not be injured. It seemed a bit far-fetched to escape with the shuttle and the water wings. Whether it was in the water or on the water surface, he could not go far in this moment, and he was still in the explosion range of the 10th water divine thunder. The shuttle's protective ability was slightly weaker, and it might be damaged at that time. In a flash, Yang Chen suddenly thought of the Mountain River geographical map that he had just obtained. It was an array map made with the dragon skin as the matrix. Yang Chen had already marked his own spiritual awareness, and it was barely regarded as the owner. With a move of his mind, the Mountain River geographical array was unfolded. The power of the Mountain River geographical map was that it could instantly store what Yang Chen wanted into the array map. Moreover, in the array map, the average person could not find anything wrong with it. When Li Junyu and dozens of 10th water divine thunder entered the Mountain River geographical map, it was also the time when the 10th water divine thunder exploded. However, Yang Chen was very reassured about the Mountain River geographical map made of dragon skin. It was impossible to destroy it with just dozens of 10th water divine thunder. The facts also proved that Yang Chen's judgment was correct. Not only did it not explode, but the 10th water divine thunder exploded in the array map, and the explosion scene was really restored, so that Li Junyu could not tell whether she was in reality or in the illusion array. The geography in this mountain river geographical map was formed according to the real geography. Now Yang Chen and Li Junyu were above the East China Sea, and it happened that in the mountain river geographical map, there was a complete map of the East China Sea. Everything that Li Junyu saw in her eyes was the performance of the real geographical form. If it was on land, Li Junyu might have discovered it due to some geographical changes. But now, on the sea, there was a vast expanse of seawater everywhere. After the violent shock of the explosion, who would compare the sea surface just now to the current sea surface? Li Junyu naturally thought that she had completed her plan and seriously injured Yang Chen. In order to let Li Junyu continue this perception, Yang Chen threw a group of his own spiritual consciousness into the mountain river geographical map, pretending to be weak. For a long period of time in the future, Yang Chen's group of spiritual awareness would take Li Junyu in circles in the sea. After all, there was only the geographical map of the East Sea in the mountain river geographical map. Li Junyu would not notice it if he went around on the sea. Once she wanted to return to the land, she would notice something wrong when she reached the edge of the sea. Although the diagram was not so simple that it became nothing at the edge, after all, it was different from the real situation. Li Junyu, as a veteran Yuanying stage ancestor, had rich experience and may be able to recognize it immediately. However, recognizing it was recognizing it, and being able to break away from the diagram was also breaking away from the diagram. If there was no accident, Li Junyu seemed to be trapped in this diagram, either tracking Yang Chen's spiritual consciousness without knowing anything, or knowing the truth but being helpless. There was no other possibility. This kind of Dragon Clan's formation was not something that Li Junyu, who only had a basic understanding of the formation, could crack, and she was doomed to a tragic life in the future. The most tragic thing was that Li Junyu would not notice that whether she used spiritual power to attack or fly with her sword in the diagram, all these spiritual powers would be absorbed by the diagram and become one of the sources of spiritual power for refining more advanced diagrams. If Yang Chen was willing, he could even collect a bunch of cultivators to cultivate in the diagram. As long as they cultivated the cultivation methods related to this diagram, they would automatically sacrificial refine the diagram in the process of cultivation, and the power of the diagram would become stronger and stronger. Of course, whether to do this or not, it was decided by his senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling in the future. Yang Chen has already planned to give this mountain river geographical map to his senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling as a life source magic weapon. How to sacrificial refine this magic weapon in the future, of course, was decided by his senior apprentice sister. Speaking of it, this Li Junyu had a relationship with the Taishanmen before, otherwise, she would not send her younger generation to the Taishanmen. Maybe this time, when several disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island came to consult Yang Chen with those ancient characters, it was arranged by Li Junyu. This kind of thing happened 100 miles away from the gate of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen believed that Li Junyu would never be the only one who knew. However, now Yang Chen did not return to the Green Jade Immortal Island to argue with them or see their internal quarrels. According to his own plan, he would return to the Dragon Palace treasure house. The Green Jade Immortal Island was originally by the sea. The gourd and the sea-pouring jasper cup on Yang Chen have never stopped collecting the 10th water true essence. After more than a year, a bathtub-sized puddle has been formed in the gourd. Although it can't be compared with the big lake of the first wood true essence spiritual solution, it is enough to shock the world. So much 10th water true essence spiritual solution was also enough for Yang Chen to upgrade the 10th water true secret art to condense the Dan again. Yang Chen has made up his mind. This time, when he returned to the Dragon Palace treasure house, he would immediately retreat and rush into the 10th water Golden Dan. Once again, he wrapped the whole body with the sea-pouring jasper cup. Under the blessing of the water-dividing wings, the shuttle broke the waves, and it took only half a month to rush back to the Dragon Palace treasure house. This trip took more than a year and a half. Returning to the treasure house, Yang Chen found that Xiao Tian was about to absorb the dragon chi of the jade case, and the exquisite pagoda above seemed to be in his hands right away. Yang Chen temporarily resisted the urge to retreat. While merging the flames, he cultivated. After waiting patiently for 2 months, the exquisite pagoda was finally in his hand. Holding the pagoda in his hand, Yang Chen habitually sent his spiritual power and spiritual awareness. Unexpectedly, the pagoda did not pass any information to him. He tried to control the pagoda, but found that it could only change its size with the input of spiritual power by Yang Chen, and there was no other function. This made Yang Chen fall into contemplation. What kind of pagoda was this? Could let the Dragon King solemnly place it in the Dragon Palace? Yang Chen has also seen the pagoda of the pagoda-bearing king. It was clearly not like this. A pagoda that could only change size? The material did not seem to be so solid. Using it to attack the enemy was definitely like using an egg to hit a stone. What was the use of such a weak pagoda? When he was in doubt, Xiao Tian suddenly screamed. His figure twisted and rushed directly into the first layer of the pagoda. Subsequently, the gate of the pagoda slowly closed, and above the gate, 2 Dragon Clan characters, Dragon Pagoda, appeared. Chapter 691. Through the window of the pagoda, Yang Chen could vaguely see that Xiao Tian was flying happily inside. It seemed to be very happy. Yang Chen's heart moved, and suddenly his mind was connected with Xiao Tian. He immediately saw the scene inside the Dragon Tower through Xiao Tian's eyes. Xiao Tian was on the first floor of the pagoda at the moment. From the outside, the space of the pagoda was not big, but it seemed extremely spacious inside. The body of Xiao Tian was almost the same size as the pagoda outside, but inside it was like a small earthworm. On the walls around the first floor there were 8 exquisite pictures painted. On each painting, there was a dragon hovering and flying. Around the dragon, there were clouds composed of various lines. Each dragon was lifelike, and they couldn't wait to break the wall and fly straight into the sky. The atmosphere in the Dragon Tower seemed to make Xiao Tian feel very comfortable. When Xiao Tian finished twisting happily, then it began a behavior that Yang Chen couldn't understand. The long body of Xiao Tian suddenly began to twist, posing a very complicated posture, and then it stopped in the middle of the first floor of the Dragon Tower, motionless. Yang Chen didn't pay attention at first, but soon discovered that the posture of Xiao Tian was a bit familiar. He immediately reacted. The posture of Xiao Tian was clearly the posture of the dragon painted on one of the 8 paintings. After a little thought, Yang Chen understood. This Dragon Tower was clearly a place for the cultivation of the Dragon Clan. The murals on it were the postures and secret arts of cultivation. However, this was also a secret art that could only be understood and used by the Dragon Clan. Although Xiao Tian was Yazi, it was still one of the Dragon Sons. It had the blood of the Dragon Clan, so it was easy to cultivate the above secret arts. The things that could make the East Sea Dragon King carefully collected were by no means ordinary things. This point Yang Chen was very convinced. From the time Xiao Tian posed to the present, it was such a short time. Yang Chen could already perceive that it absorbed the dragon chi on the 3 jade cases and was digesting and absorbing it at a speed that was hundreds of times faster than usual. This was clearly due to the Dragon Pagoda and the cultivation method within it. Although Yang Chen knew some of the methods that Xiao Tian wanted to improve, it was still far from the orthodox Dragon Clan cultivation method. Being able to cultivate systematically was definitely countless times more effective than letting Xiao Tian instinctively swallow the tool spirit. Xiao Tian seems to have been immersed in the Dragon Tower and does not want to come out. The remaining jade case could not be broken for the time being. There were two branch-like things on the jade table. Yang Chen could already guess that they were definitely two dragon horns. As for what kind of magic weapon they were refined into, Yang Chen was not sure. But now Xiao Tian was cultivating, Yang Chen did not stop him. It was his own, it was always his own. However, Yang Chen believed that cultivation did not have to be continued all the time. Leaving an instruction for Xiao Tian to find time to break the jade case, Yang Chen went out directly, sat on the sea map and began his own retreat. This time, Yang Chen's goal was to condense the 10th water spirit power. With the gourd and the sea jasper cup, Yang Chen already had enough 10th water true essence, and he did not have to worry about the true essence being cut off in the middle of the cultivation. With this method, Yang Chen was sure that he could shorten the process of condensing his Dan from at least 5 years to 1 year. Having made up his mind, Yang Chen did not care about anything else and entered the state of retreat cultivation. Specializing in one kind of spiritual power, the 10th water true secret art has been urged to the extreme. The 10th water spiritual solution in the gourd directly entered Yang Chen's body and began to merge with Yang Chen's original spiritual power, which was easily absorbed by Yang Chen. The steady stream of 10th water spiritual solution constantly supplemented the needs of Yang Chen's body. Under the guidance of Yang Chen's 10th water true secret art, it constantly absorbed, merged, condensed, and became a part of his own spiritual power. This process, repeated without stopping. The Dragon Palace seems to have fallen into the silent world again because of the cultivation of Yang Chen and Xiao Tian. In just 4 months, Yang Chen's body suddenly flashed a pale blue light, cutting through the tranquility in the treasure house. As the light flashed, in an instant, the entire sea map was filled with a strong 10th water aura. Yang Chen's body seemed to be covered with a shiny blue coat. The 10th water true essence in Yang Chen's body also shrank into the dantian at this moment and condensed together effortlessly. In a moment it became a round light blue golden dan. Suddenly, the 10th water true essence was emptied, and the 10th water spiritual solution outside the body quickly began to replenish the meridians. The golden dan began to crazily absorb the 10th water spiritual solution, and the color began to get deeper and deeper until it became the same blue as the sea, and then it slowly stopped. At the moment of this breakthrough, the sea of consciousness had new changes. However, this change did not bring about a qualitative change. It was just that the original surface of the Gui water seemed to be a little larger. The overall sea of consciousness was slightly larger than before, about 20% larger, becoming 240 acres in size. However, his spiritual awareness directly broke through the threshold of the early Deshang stage and entered the realm of the middle Deshang stage. The traces of spiritual awareness threads seemed to have become substantial and full of tactile sensations. 10th water golden dan, because of the supplement of the 10th water spiritual solution, has become almost the size of the first wood golden dan. After the solidifying dan, directly relying on the 10th water spiritual solution, the 10th water spirit power cultivation base was pushed to the peak of the early Jedon stage. Until this moment, Yang Chen slowly stopped his cultivation method and stood up. Pinching his fingers, this time the 10th water spirit power solidifying dan, it took only 4 months, which really made Yang Chen a little surprised. He originally thought that it would take at least 10 months to a year, but he didn't expect to save so much time. However, strictly speaking, Yang Chen was still a little disappointed. At the foundation stage, when Yang Chen's 3 kinds of spirit power solidifying dan, he immediately drove the 10 kinds of spirit power of the Yin-Yang 5 elements secret art to build the foundation at the same time. But now at the time of the solidifying dan, there were already 4 kinds of spirit power solidifying dan, but it was still unable to drive all the spirit power solidifying dan. It seemed that if he wanted to completely solidify dan, he needed more spirit power solidifying dan. The vein of seventh metal true essence left by Tai by jinxing could not be taken. Perhaps, as long as the seventh metal spirit power was also solidifying Dan, the 5 kinds of spirit power solidifying Dan, more than half, could drive all the spirit power to solidify Dan. Otherwise, Yang Chun had to control his cultivation base and strive to maintain the balance of the yin-yang 5 elements spirit power. He didn't know how Shao Tian's cultivation in the Dragon Tower was. Yang Chun had an idea. Since Shao Tian could use the cultivation method in the Dragon Tower to digest and absorb the dragon qi, maybe this time he could collect all the magic weapons on the jade case. The next time he came to the Dragon Palace treasure house, he believed that Yang Chun could collect the entire Dragon Palace treasure house. Chapter 692. The Dragon Tower was still in the hall, with the height of a person. Yang Chun did not control the Dragon Tower to become taller. After entering the hall, Yang Chun established a connection with Shao Tian again and soon understood the current state of Shao Tian. In the first diagram, Shao Tian seems to have completed the cultivation, but there is still a lot of dragon qi left in its body. It is carrying out the cultivation of the second diagram, and the second diagram is also approaching the end. Yang Chun was in the hall, cultivating the 3 purities secret art and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique while waiting for Shao Tian to complete the cultivation of the second diagram. Less than half a month later, Shao Tian came back from the Dragon Tower in high spirit. The Dragon Tower was thrown directly into the medicine garden by Yang Chun, next to the large pile of magic weapon fragments, which will be Shao Tian's nest in the medicine garden in the future. In less than 2 years, Shao Tian completely digested the dragon qi absorbed on the 3 jade cases, and in the past, it took about 10 years to do so. The last remaining jade case, Yang Chun would certainly not be polite, and immediately instructed Shao Tian to start devouring the dragon qi on it. While Shao Tian was cracking the formation of the jade case, Yang Chun's eyes were fixed on the huge dragon bead facing the entrance of the hall. Although Shao Tian has cultivated the 2 postures in the Dragon Tower, Yang Chun did not think that it had the ability to move this dragon bead. The diagram in the Dragon Tower was obviously a set of systematic cultivation methods of the Dragon Clan, but Yang Chun knew that it was only the first layer of the cultivation method. The entire Dragon Tower had a total of 9 layers. Yang Chun estimated that after Shao Tian finished cultivating the first layer of the cultivation method, it would be able to enter the second layer of the Dragon Tower after its cultivation base was sufficient. The second layer must have the cultivation method of the second layer, layer by layer. In Yang Chun's estimation, if Shao Tian wanted to move the dragon bead, it would be possible to at least reach the third layer of the Dragon Tower. If the dragon bead was completely absorbed, Yang Chun could not imagine how much Shao Tian would grow at that time. After cultivating the cultivation method in the Dragon Pagoda, Shao Tian absorbed the dragon qi faster. Now, it was no longer swallowing in the same way as before. Instead, it adopted the posture of the first image, opening its mouth and sucking violently. According to this speed, it wouldn't take long for him to obtain the 2 dragon horns on the jade case. Yang Chun simply continued to let the gourd and the sea jasper absorb the 10th water spiritual solution. He was in the hall, cultivating and reading while waiting for Shao Tian's work. As Yang Chun expected, in just 2 months, the dragon qi on the jade case was completely swallowed by Shao Tian, revealing 2 dragon horns. Yang Chun had been keeping an eye on it recently. As soon as the array was broken, Yang Chun reached out and grabbed the 2 dragon horns in his hand. Instinctively, he sent his divine sense and spiritual power in. Unexpectedly, the divine sense that he had tried thousands of times did not have the slightest effect. He didn't even manage to leave a divine sense imprint. As for the exploration of the spiritual power, it only let Yang Chun know the attributes of the 2 dragon horns. These 2 dragon horns, one was fire and one was water. At this moment, Yang Chun also understood the reason why his divine sense couldn't make a mark. So far, these 2 dragon horns have not undergone any sacrificial refining. They were simply 2 dragon horns. How could it be like a magic weapon and imprint a divine sense imprint? However, this did not prevent Yang Chen's face from showing a smile. The 2 dragon horns of water and fire, wasn't it just the best material for his master's life source magic weapon? His master was originally a master of refining, and these 2 dragon horns just let her refine them into her favorite style. No matter what it looked like, Yang Chen would not doubt the quality of the flying sword made from the 2 dragon horns as raw materials. He believed that even the Qilin horn flying sword of Wang Yong may be inferior to his master's flying sword in the future. Coming to the Dragon Palace treasure house, even his master and senior sister's life source magic weapon were all solved. It was simply arranged by the heavens. Yang Chen didn't know what to say. This was not counting the dragon tower that was obtained for Xiao Tian, and the 5-element hook specially prepared for the birth of the magic weapon in the future. The harvest of this trip was not even worse than when Yang Chen went to the monster plane to seize the property of the second city lord. He got the thing, the 10th water spirit power condensing pill. This trip to the sea, Yang Chen almost achieved all the goals of going to the sea. There were even other gains, such as those marine elixirs, such as Li Junyu. Originally, Yang Chen planned to go to the underworld immediately to get the vein of 7th metal true essence left by Tai Bai Jinxing, but after getting the 2 dragon horns and the mountain river geographical map, Yang Chen changed his mind. These things, it was better to go back to the sect and hand them over to his master and senior sister. The quenching of the life source magic weapon was also a time-consuming and laborious work. The earlier the quenching, the earlier the success. Yang Chen didn't know how long it would take for him to go to the underworld. According to his recent experience of going out, it would take a few years. This was only counting the time when he went to the ground to find the 7th metal true essence, and when he collected it. He had not calculated the time it would take for Yang Chen to condense the pill. Instead of wasting so much time, Yang Chen would go back first and explain these to his master and senior sister. It would be better for them to start the sacrificial refining as soon as possible. It would only take a few months on the road, and it would not delay Yang Chen too much. With the water dividing wings, the speed of the shuttle would be faster, and maybe the time could be saved. After thinking about it, Yang Chen immediately put it into practice. He rushed out of the hall, retrieved the gourd and the sea jasper, and retrieved the medicine garden from the spiritual vein. Without saying a word, he left the Dragon Palace, summoned the shuttle directly, and flew in the direction of Chunyang Palace. Along the way, he didn't worry about anything. He identified the direction and flew all the way. In just 2 months, he rushed back to Chunyang Palace. Of course, flying in the Chunyang Palace mountain gate was not allowed. After retrieving the shuttle, Yang Chen went straight to his master's small courtyard. On the way, he met several disciples of Chunyang Palace. When everyone saw Yang Chen, they were all shocked, as if they had seen something magical. Yang Chen didn't care at first, but several disciples in a row behaved like this, which suddenly made Yang Chen a little confused. What happened here? However, Yang Chen did not stop to ask anything. Anyway, when he saw his master, he would definitely be able to understand what happened. Ignoring these strange disciples, Yang Chen walked all the way to his master's courtyard. Noticing his master's breath from a distance, Yang Chen rushed into the courtyard excitedly. As soon as he entered the door, he shouted, "Master, I'm back!" There was a sudden noise in the room, and then Gao Yu's figure rushed out. When she saw Yang Chen, she couldn't believe her eyes. After standing still, Gao Yu looked up and down several times, and then she said in surprise, "It's really you, Yang Chen? Are you okay?" Chapter 693. What can happen to me? Yang Chen was stunned again. Why did his master behave so strangely? In the midst of the surprise, Gao Yu had already come forward and pulled Yang Chen. From time to time, she felt up and down, as if to determine whether Yang Chen was real. In the end, she cried with joy and said, it's true, Yang Chen, you are really okay." Her body softened and she fell into Yang Chen's arms. "Master, what happened in the end?" Yang Chen held his master and slowly walked to the stone table in the middle of the yard and sat down. Then he asked strangely, "There are rumors outside that elderly of the Green Jade Immortal Island, when you left the Green Jade Immortal Island, he brought a large number of masters to chase you." Gao Yu finally calmed down, but her eyes still stared at Yang Chen's face and did not leave. She explained, "Li Junyu brought hundreds of 10th Water Divine Thunder to attack. Later, you have not appeared. Everyone speculated that you should have died." When Gao Yu spoke, Yang Chen was also looking at Gao Yu. It seemed that Gao Yu was very worried during this time, her face was haggard, and Yang Chen couldn't help but feel distressed. He pulled out a ginseng of more than 1,000 years old from the medicine garden, and the profound spirit furnace quickly appeared in Yang Chen's hands. In a flash, the 1,000-year ginseng became a ginseng liquid. Without thinking about it, Yang Chen poured the ginseng liquid into a jade cup and sent it to his master's mouth. Gao Yu knew Yang Chen's mind. Although she knew that she was fine, she still opened her mouth and drank the ginseng liquid. "Master won't believe it so easily, right?" When Yang Chen saw Gao Yu finish drinking, he breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "The last time Luo Yuan of the Deshang stage chased me, wasn't I fine? This time it's different." Gao Yu also shook her head with a bitter smile and said, "Last time Luo Yuan was just one person. This time it is said that Li Junyu brought at least 3 masters of the Deshang stage and 4 masters of the Yuanying stage to chase you, and it was still arranged in advance. Many people say that you are dead." "Where did the news come from?" Yang Chen frowned. This news was really a bit strange. It seemed that it was aimed at the cooperation between Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island. He hurriedly asked, "What did the palace master say?" Of course, the head of the palace didn't believe it at first. After Gao Yu saw Yang Chen, she completely calmed down, and her speech was much more orderly, but later, the rumors had a nose and eyes. The Green Jade Immortal Island even removed Li Junyu's elder qualification, and many people believed it. "It can't be." The Green Jade Immortal Island reacted quickly and removed Li Junyu's elder qualification. This was not surprising. The Lord of Tantai's counterattack was not slow. However, this matter actually developed to the point where everyone thought that Yang Chen was dead, which was a bit unbelievable. The head of the palace began to send people to contact the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island a few months ago, but the Lord of Tantai could not give a definite news. Gao Yu quickly gave Yang Chen doubts, and then hurriedly reminded him, "Yang Chen, you go to the head of the palace and clarify the misunderstanding." It was related to the cooperation between Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen certainly did not dare to neglect it. He quickly went to the main hall of the Chunyang Palace to visit the head of the palace. Gao Yu directly let her servant inform Gong Sunling, and she rushed to the place where her master Wang Yong was and reported the news of her master Yang Chen's return. Yang Chen. When the head of the palace heard Yang Chen's greeting, he ran out directly. The moment he saw Yang Chen, his face was filled with joy and he laughed, "I knew you were fine." After laughing, he pulled Yang Chen into the hall and immediately sent someone to invite the elders. Waiting for the arrival of the elders, the head of the palace briefly introduced the current situation to Yang Chen. Because of the death of Yang Chen, there were now some small gaps between the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Chunyang Palace, but under the strong control of the Lord of Tantai and the head of the palace, there was not much contradiction. But if Yang Chen did not come back, some people would not be able to continue to suppress it. Yang Chen's master ancestor Wang Yong was one of them. Although because of the previous experience, everyone had a blind confidence in Yang Chen and firmly believed that Yang Chen would be fine, this time was different. The head of the palace sent someone to ask the Lord of Tantai if it was true that Li Junyu took the three masters of the Deshang stage to chase after Yang Chen. The Lord of Tantai was vague. He just said that Li Junyu had been colluding with the three masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and did not accept her as the island master. On the day of Yang Chen's accident, Li Junyu and the three masters of the Deshang stage did go out, but later the three masters all returned, but Li Junyu's whereabouts were unknown. The Lord of Tantai also asked about the inside story of the three masters. The three masters of the Deshang stage did not lie in front of the Lord of Tantai. They just said that they were invited by Li Junyu to block Yang Chen in several directions, but the three people were unlucky and no one met Yang Chen. Moreover, the matter of Li Junyu bringing dozens of 10th water divine thunders was also said to be hundreds of them. It may be that Li Junyu herself said this to increase the confidence of some people. Li Junyu was missing, no one knew what happened, and the Lord of Tantai could not give a definite news. The two sides were in a stalemate. At the beginning, everyone could still restrain themselves, but as time went by, there was no news of Yang Chen, and Wang Yong began to attack. His own grand disciple was inexplicably attacked by the elders of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, at the entrance of the mountain. According to Wang Yong's intention, he had to go to the door and ask the Green Jade, Immortal Island, to give an explanation. The master of the palace tried his best to dissuade Wang Yong, but recently, Wang Yong was also a little bit unable to dissuade him. During the conversation, the elders had already rushed to the hall, and when they saw Yang Chen, they were all surprised and happy. Especially Wang Yong, he was simply like an old child, laughing happily without stopping. At this time, the master of the palace remembered that he immediately sent someone to send a letter to the Lord of Tantai, telling her that Yang Chen was safe and sound. This was related to the cooperation between the two sects and could not be sloppy. The earlier the Lord of Tantai was informed, the earlier the misunderstanding would be dispelled. Did Li Junyu chase you or not? Wang Yong became a master of the Deshang stage, but his temper became more and more impatient. After the master of the palace arranged it, he directly asked Yang Chen, "What is going on with Li Junyu's disappearance?" This disciple was indeed chased by Li Junyu. Yang Chen directly gave an affirmative answer. Seeing the ancestor, Wang Yong's eyebrows raised. He hurriedly replied, "As for the disappearance of Li Junyu, since this disciple is fine, then of course she has a little trouble." Chapter 694. Because the Green Jade Immortal Island did not deny Li Junyu's actions, Chunyang Palace held a skeptical attitude towards the news from the Lord of Tantai later, saying that the three Deshang stage masters did not meet Yang Chen at all. The cooperation between the two sides was cracked because of Yang Chen, and they lost the basis of cooperation. Now that Yang Chen was back, only he knew everything. This disciple really did not meet any Deshang stage masters. Yang Chen replied very realistically, "I only met Li Junyu alone." After solving her, this disciple went to collect some seabed elixirs, which was delayed for a period of time. I didn't expect so many things to happen. Li Junyu had a little trouble. What kind of little trouble? Yang Chen did not mention it. Just like Elder Wan Qian of the Blue Cloud sect, there were some things that could not be done. The head of the palace and the elders also understood this truth, so they did not ask, but nodded with a clear attitude. They believed that the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island knew the fate of Li Junyu now, and it was estimated that he would not say anything. This was the best way to deal with Li Junyu. Li Junyu did not die, because her life source spirit tablet was not broken, so she was not killed. She was missing, and the spearhead could not be pointed at Yang Chen. Since the Green Jade Immortal Island could say that the three masters of the Deshang stage had not seen Yang Chen could certainly say that he had not seen Li Junyu. The Lord of Tantai would definitely take this statement to deal with the rhetorical questions in the Green Jade Immortal Island sect. With the support of the island master, Yang Chen was not afraid of what they would say. Anyway, the Lord of Tantai had one less troublemaker in the sect, and Yang Chun had one less person who wanted to kill him. It was the best of both worlds. As for what happened in private, that was a private matter. As long as after a period of time, those masters of the Deshang stage would enjoy the power of the questioning inner heart pill, they would naturally beg the Lord of Tantai. The disappearance of a Yuanying stage elder who was entangled with Taishaman was not a big deal. What's with the sea elixir? Could there really be some kind of inheritance? At first, Zhu Chuntao was also worried about Yang Chen's safety. Now that Yang Chen was fine, he was also relieved and immediately began to ask about alchemy. In fact, everyone was also interested, but they had never mentioned it. Zhu Chuntao's question was perfect. That's really because I wanted to study the spirit herbs in the sea. Yang Chen smiled bitterly. It seemed that because of this, many people had already misunderstood that Yang Chen had obtained some ancient inheritance or some top-secret alchemy scripture. He did have the pill scripture, but it had nothing to do with the spirit medicine of the sea, nor did it have anything to do with any ancient inheritance. But even Zhu Chuntao of Chunyang Palace thought so, let alone others. Disciple has a medicinal herb garden that can nurture spirit herbs from the sea, so I plan to nurture a batch of them. At this time, Yang Chen also had to come up with some things to let the high-level officials of Chunyang Palace feel relieved. Otherwise, everyone would have discord, which would not be a good thing. In a flash, Yang Chen gave a command to a Zhu and a Bai in the medicine garden, asking them to move most of the medicinal herbs in the medicine garden to the second layer space first. This action was completed in an instant. Later, Yang Chen apologized to the head of the palace and the elders. Palace Master, elders, I have offended you. With a wave of his hand, the space of the medicine garden opened, and everyone was taken into the medicine garden. This was the first time that Yang Chen had brought outsiders into his own medicine garden. Before that, even his master and senior sister had not been brought in. As soon as everyone entered the medicine garden, they were immediately shocked by the wide ocean that stretched for thousands of miles. Everyone had seen a lot of space in the medicine garden, and the head of the palace had cultivated one himself, but who had ever seen a medicine garden with an ocean? At this moment, in the ocean of the medicine garden, there were already a lot of spirit medicines collected by Yang Chen along the way, and there were many creatures on the seabed, living leisurely in the ocean, and it looked like a vibrant scene. While everyone was clicking their tongues in wonder, they accidentally saw the elixirs on the land. Although Yang Chen had transplanted most of them to the second layer space, there were still countless coveted good things left. Tens of thousands of thousand-year-old profound yang fruit, now almost 2,000 years old, dozens of 2,000-year-old ginseng, Polygonum multiflorum and other spirit medicines. There were almost all kinds of other spirit medicines. It was too much for the eyes to take in. Even the spirit medicines that Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan obtained when they took the blood essence of the howling celestial dog were still there. Although the most suitable part had been removed, except for the rhizomes of these spirit medicines, the other plants were still there. In time, these would be another batch of spirit medicines. The most shocking thing was the thunder pomegranate trees planted in a group. Yang Chen's batch of thunder pomegranate had hundreds of trees, which directly formed a forest. There were huge pomegranates on the trees, and they were already more than 200 years old. Of course, among so many spirit medicines, a few old tea trees seemed a bit nondescript, but everyone knew that Yang Chen loved to drink tea, so it was normal for him to plant a few tea trees. So that's how it is. The head of the palace just glanced at the spirit medicines planted in the medicine garden and did not look at them anymore. Instead, he stood by the seaside and looked at the creatures growing in the clear ocean with interest. After watching for a long time, the head of the palace turned back and did not discuss with the elders. He directly said to Yang Chen, what kind of marine spirit medicines do you need? Pull out a list. I will let the disciples of Chunyang Palace help you collect them. After instructing Yang Chen, the head of the palace turned to the other elders and said, This kind of medicine garden that can cultivate marine spirit medicines, after thousands of years, can let my Chunyang Palace have one more source of spirit medicines than other sect. With Yang Chen's cultivation here, coupled with the research of the medicinal hall and Yang Chen, we will be one step ahead and one step ahead. At that time, the marine spirit medicine may be a benefit to my Chunyang Palace, comparable to the questioning inner heart pill and the inner sensing pill. This was the vision of the head of the palace. Everyone seemed to have no doubt about this and nodded one after another. Over the years, Chunyang Palace had already received countless benefits by relying on the questioning inner heart pill. Everyone had seen it in their eyes. Now it seemed that these marine spirit medicines would be a big income in the future. For the good things in Yang Chen's medicine garden, no one was tempted. After coming out of Yang Chen's medicine garden space, everyone's face was also covered with a layer of brilliance. Yang Chen, this disciple, was simply the lucky star of Chunyang Palace. No matter when, it seemed that he could bring a surprise to the sect. Just on the path of alchemy there were constant surprises. It was like this before, it was like this now, and it was estimated that it would still be like this in the future. Chapter 695. The coordination with the Green Jade Immortal Island was naturally considered by the head of the palace and the elders. Yang Chen only needed to explain things clearly. However, with this opportunity, it was necessary for Chunyang Palace to repair the relationship with the Green Jade Immortal Island, explain the misunderstanding, and continue the cooperation between the two sides. Anyway, everyone has set a purpose, that is, Chunyang Palace has no knowledge of this. Yang Chen has also been collecting seabed elixirs and has not met Elder Li Junyu. As for the whereabouts of Elder Li Junyu, no one knew it now, but since there were rumors, those who spread the rumors would be clear. In the worst case, Li Junyu also had an attempt to murder Yang Chen. Maybe she fled after the truth was revealed. Anyway, now the Green Jade Immortal Island has removed Li Junyu's elder identity. For a missing Li Junyu, the Green Jade Immortal Island will never become enemies with Chunyang Palace. Moreover, the root cause was still Li Junyu, no wonder Chunyang Palace, no wonder Yang Chen. While the elders were discussing how to deal with the relationship between the two sides, Wang Yong came out directly and took Yang Chen to Gao Yu's residence. He wanted to thoroughly figure out what Yang Chen had experienced. No way, this was his most proud grand disciple. Wang Yong didn't want to always hear similar news. His senior apprentice sister Gong Sunling also got the news and had been waiting here for a long time. She knew that Yang Chen would definitely come here. Although she already knew that it was a rumor, when she saw Yang Chen, she still couldn't suppress her joy. What the hell is going on? Where is that Li Junyu? Wang Yong sat on the main seat and directly waved his hand to release a few restrictions, and then asked majestically, "Don't hide it." Li Junyu wanted to kill this disciple, she was trapped by this disciple, that's it. Yang Chen's explanation was too simple, so simple that it made people want to beat him up. Where is she trapped? Gao Yu was about to stare at Wang Yong, and hurriedly asked first, while giving Yang Chen a look. Here. Yang Chen stretched out his hand, and a simple and unadorned scroll appeared in his hand. It was the geographical map of the mountains and rivers. What is this? When Yang Chen took it out, Wang Yong immediately stood up in shock. Gao Yu and Gong Suanling's cultivation base was low, and they could not see the extraordinariness of the mountain river geographical map at a glance for the time being, but Wang Yong was different. The realm of the Deshang stage allowed him to instantly discover the strength of this map. The mountain river geographical map. A very powerful array diagram. A high-grade magic treasure. Yang Chen explained with a smile, "This is the natal magic treasure that I found for senior sister this time." For me? Gong Sunling took the mountain river geographical map in surprise, but she still couldn't believe it. "I have removed the spiritual consciousness imprint from it. Senior apprentice sister, as long as you put in the spiritual consciousness imprint, you can recognize it as your master." Yang Chen motioned to Gong Sunling to immediately recognize it as his master. Gong Sunling couldn't believe it, and involuntarily glanced at Wang Yong, who had the highest realm and seniority here. Wang Yong couldn't hide the shock on his face, but nodded to Gong Sunling. Gao Yu next to her also looked at Gong Sunling expectantly. Everyone supported it. Gong Sunling put in her own spiritual consciousness imprint with some apprehension, and then her face immediately became solemn, and she understood the real strength of the Mountain River geographical map. Yang Chen has been carrying the Mountain River geographical map with him. In addition to the East China Sea, hundreds of miles of mountains and rivers on the way back to Chunyang Palace have been entered into the Mountain River geographical map. The current Mountain River geographical map was much larger than the original East China Sea, but it was also limited. After all, the geographical area of Yangchun along the way could not be compared with the large East China Sea. Here, there is a Yuanying stage master? Becoming her own magic weapon, Gong Sunling immediately knew everything in the array map, and Li Junyu certainly couldn't hide her figure. In fact, Li Junyu has now completely fallen into the illusion array of the Mountain River geographical map, and she can no longer recognize the difference between reality and illusion. For a few months, she now had only one thought, that was to chase the spiritual awareness of Yang Chen in front of her, and keep chasing without stopping. Her mind has gradually been confused by the array map. Unless Gong Sunling was willing to release her, she could only live in the array map like this. Before Yang Chen confirmed this for Li Junyu. Although she was already a Yuanying stage master, because of the influence of the array map, coupled with her own dual emotions of anger and pride, she could not think calmly, so she was trapped deeper and deeper in the array. Yang Chen even let the array map allow her to absorb the spiritual power of the outside world to restore her strength. All the spiritual power used by Li Junyu in the array map was equivalent to the indirect sacrificial refining of this Mountain River geographical map. Now that Gong Sunling got it in her hands, it was just recognizing the owner, but there was already a Yuanying stage master who was constantly sacrificial refining the array map for Gong Sunling. That is Li Junyu. Yang Chen in front of Wang Yong, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, of course, would not hide the truth. I think she will live very well in this array map, but the Green Jade Immortal Island will never find her, and she will never appear. That is Li Junyu? Hearing the introduction of Yang Chen, Gong Sunling's eyes suddenly burst out. Li Junyu wanted to kill Yang Chen, this was clear to everyone. When Gong Sunling learned the news, her beautiful face turned pale and she almost collapsed again, but she finally knew that Yang Chen would not be so easy to be killed, so she was strong enough to endure until now. To let her be merciful to the culprit who murdered Yang Chen, it was better to let people believe that the sun rose from the west. Gao Yu and Wang Yong were shocked. A Yuanying stage master was really trapped in the array map. Wang Yong was shocked, but he could accept it instantly. After all, he had vaguely discovered that the Mountain River geographical map was definitely not so simple. But Gao Yu had no concept at all, and she was stunned. A master of the Yuanying stage was easily trapped in the array map by Yang Chen, a Jedon stage junior, and it was said that hundreds of 10th water divine thunder were used. Even if this number was exaggerated, but even if the number was reduced to dozens, it was not something that a junior in the early Jedon stage could do. Moreover, listening to Yang Chen's words, it seemed that this array map had just been imprinted with his spiritual awareness. Without any sacrificial refining, it could trap a Yuanying stage ancestor. How powerful was this array map? Such an array map, and it was still an earth attribute, it was definitely more than enough to be the life source magic weapon of Gong Sunling. No wonder Yang Chen had said so much before, the life source magic weapon was on him. It turned out that there was such a foreshadowing. Gong Sunling was already overjoyed. An extraordinary life source magic weapon array map, accompanied by a Yuanying stage master to help with the sacrificial refining, such a good thing like falling from the sky, how could she not be overjoyed? In particular, this was given to her by her lover. Gong Sunling couldn't help but steal a look at Yang Chun, full of joy. Chapter 696. This mountain river geographical map. Senior sister should use the method of refining life source magic weapon as soon as possible. Yang Chun didn't care about Li Junyu's fate. He only cared about the cultivation of the people around him, so he immediately suggested, in addition, the more places you have seen, the more powerful the mountain river geographical map will be. If senior sister has a chance, try to go out and gain experience. Knowing these characteristics from the mountain river geographical map, Gong Sunling certainly understood Yang Chen's meaning, nodded heavily, and put away the mountain river geographical map solemnly. Seeing that Gong Sunling already had her own life source magic weapon, even Wang Yong was moved. Gao Yu couldn't help but be a little envious, and couldn't help but ask with a smile, "A Ling's life source magic weapon has been found, what about mine? Yang Chen, you promised to find me a life source flying sword." "Of course, I won't forget, master." Yang Chen smiled, and took out the 2 dragon horns one after another, and put them in front of his master. "The materials have been prepared for master. What kind of refining, it depends on master yourself." Gao Yu beamed with joy and was about to pick it up to check. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and Wang Yong's figure unexpectedly stood beside her. He had already picked up the 2 dragon horns one step ahead of her, and his face was full of shock, as if he had seen something extraordinary. Wang Yong's performance once again made Gao Yu fall into shock, followed by ecstasy. Even the master was so shocked, it was definitely a good thing. It seemed that Yang Chun really found a good material for himself. Wang Yong couldn't help but be shocked. As soon as the 2 dragon horns were taken out, even his own current life source flying sword, the flying sword made of Qilin horn, was trembling. This kind of trembling was obviously not stage fright in the battle, but the deep instinctive awe when facing a high-level creature. Even though the Qilin horn had long lost its life, after Wang Yong's sacrificial refining, it seemed to have a trace of spirituality. In the face of these 2 dragon horns, it trembled slightly. The spirituality of the Qilin horn was no longer the spirituality of Qilin, but the spirituality of the tool spirit. Although Wang Yong's tool spirit has not yet been really produced, he already had a little concept. Apart from reverence towards the 2 horns, there was also a hint of greed, as if he wanted to absorb them. "What is this?" Holding it in his hand, Wang Yong couldn't help but use his divine sense to explore it, but found that he couldn't determine what it was. This was not surprising. The dragon clan was rare in the mortal world. The pure dragon clan could be said to have completely disappeared, leaving only some descendants who were not pure enough, and Xiao Tian was one of them. Even Xiao Tian, at the beginning, the bloodline of the Yazi was also very thin. If it wasn't for the blood essence of the howling celestial dog, it couldn't grow to the present level. The dragon clan had long been extinct in the mortal world for tens of thousands of years, or even earlier, so it was understandable that Wang Yong did not recognize the dragon horns. But this does not prevent him from understanding that this is a very powerful monster's horn. The 2 attributes of water and fire are just right for the current Gao Yu. 2 dragon horns. Yang Chen replied casually, one with the water attribute and one with the fire attribute. They are just right for master. What? Dragon horns? Not only Wang Yong, but even Gao Yu and Gong Sunling exclaimed. If it weren't for Wang Yong's several restrictions before they talked, maybe the sound would have startled a lot of people. What's the fuss about this? Yang Chen looked at the 3 people in front of him and said with a smile, "Senior sister's mountain river geographical map, isn't it also made of dragon skin?" Dragon skin? Gong Sunling's mind buzzed and went blank, almost fainting. Although she knew that the mountain river geographical map was very powerful and was very suitable for her own life source magic weapon, she did not know what the raw materials used for the mountain river geographical map were. Now that she heard that it turned out to be a painting made of dragon skin, her mind was blank for a while, and there was nothing in it. Wang Yong, Gao Yu, and Gong Sunling seemed to have been hit by a giant hammer. All of them were dizzy. They stood in the same place stupidly, and could hardly say anything. Even if Wang Yong was already a master of the Deshang stage, even if his own life source magic weapon was made of the horn of the Qilin, but under the stimulation of several things by Yang Chen, Wang Yong's performance was still like a country boy who had not seen much of the world. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, not to mention, the joy in their minds was even more powerful than Wang Yong. After all, whether it was the dragon horn or the dragon skin, they would be their life source magic weapons in the future. Things that belonged to them, how could they not be ecstatic? Is this true? After standing for a long time, Gao Yu reached out and took a water attribute dragon horn from Wang Yong's hand. After exploring it with her spiritual awareness, she still couldn't believe it. She took another one and looked at it for a long time before she asked this question. Yang Chen didn't even have to answer this question. Of course, he knew that Gao Yu was not doubting his words, but because the facts were too shocking, she couldn't accept it for a while. Did you rob the Dragon Palace? Gong Sunling, after waking up, also maintained a state of shock, and then said such a sentence. As soon as this sentence came out, Wang Yong, Gao Yu, and Gong Sunling seemed to understand something. Their bodies trembled, and they all thought of this possibility. Even taking out the geographical map of the mountains and rivers made of dragon horns and dragon skin, plus Yang Chen always ran to the sea. Then, in addition to looking for the legendary Dragon Palace, what else was there? The dragon horn and the dragon skin scroll could only prove one thing. That was, Yang Chen had found the Dragon Palace and got the things inside. Thinking of this possibility, the three people looked at Yang Chen's eyes almost changed. Finding the Dragon Palace, what kind of blessing could it be done? In the hearts of Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, there was nothing else but joy. Their beloved actually risked his life to explore the Dragon Palace in order to find a life source magic weapon for them. How could this make them happy? Other than being dead set on this enemy, what else could he do? Except for Yang Chen, no one has ever seen a dragon, and no one knows whether these are real dragon horns and dragon skin. However, they all believe that Yang Chen will never lie to them. This can be noticed from the texture of the dragon horns and dragon skin. These two materials are so advanced that even Gao Yu and Gong Sunling can't further sacrificial refining. Gong Sunling was fine. The geographical map of the mountains and rivers was already a magic weapon. As long as she carried out the quenching of the life source magic weapon, it would take at most a few decades or hundreds of years to become her own life source magic weapon. But Gao Yu was different. The two dragon horns had not been sacrificial refined, and if she wanted to become a flying sword, she didn't know how long it would take. Chapter 697. Can I really use the dragon horn to refine the flying sword? Until this moment, Gao Yu was still confused and couldn't believe everything in front of her. Of course. Yang Chen told Gao Yu with certainty. This is my gift to you. Since the last time he expressed his feelings, Yang Chen no longer called himself a disciple in front of Gao Yu, but replaced it with himself. But how to refine the dragon horn? Gao Yu was confused about another point. For a material like the dragon horn, let alone refining it, there was no recorded refining method at all. How could she refine it into a flying sword? This. Yang Chen paused a little, and suddenly said with some embarrassment, I know a little. In an instant, both Wang Yong and Gao Yu's eyes lit up. Yang Chen actually knew the method to refine the dragon horn? The problem just flashed by, and the two immediately understood. Yang Chen had a good reputation for reading a lot of books. Maybe even the location of the Dragon Palace was found by him from an ancient book. It was not surprising that he knew the method to refine the dragon horn. With Gao Yu's current strength, refining the dragon horn was obviously out of her reach, and she must rely on Wang Yong's strength. However, after all, she would personally participate in the refining process, and from beginning to end, there would be traces of Gao Yu's refining. The flying sword made in this way was better than using a ready-made magic weapon as a life source magic weapon. Wang Yong's excitement lay in this. He was good at refining, but he was also obsessed with refining. Being able to personally participate in the process of refining the dragon horn flying sword, and refining the life source flying sword for his own disciple, he believed that after the completion, Wang Yong's refining level would also skyrocket. He couldn't help but be excited. Everyone was now immersed in extreme joy and shock. As for Li Junyu, she had long been forgotten. Who would care about an insignificant person? The refining method that Yang Chen took out was very complicated, but the dragon horn flying sword that had been refined in this way was definitely the best flying sword in the mortal world, even stronger than the great Yin Yang 5 elements flying sword in Yang Chen's hand. There was no doubt about this. Yang Chen's great Yin and Yang 5 elements flying sword required overall coordination, while the dragon horn flying sword required individual strength. The pursuit was different. Except for Yang Chen, Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, and Wang Yong, no one else knew what happened in the courtyard today. Even the high-level members of the Pure Yang Palace only knew that after Wang Yong found Yang Chen, he immediately became extremely excited, as if he had regained his youthful vitality. It was completely unlike the kind of lifeless cultivator who had reached the Deshang stage and was wholeheartedly seeking a breakthrough in the realm. Not to mention Gong Sunling, she retreated on the same day and began to temper her own life source magic weapon. The power of the Mountain River geographical map, when there was no sacrificial refining, it could easily trap a Yuanying stage master like Li Junyu in it. Once it was really sacrificial refined and became her own life source magic weapon, Gong Sunling could hardly imagine how powerful it would be. Gao Yu devoted all her energy to the process of refining the dragon horn. Of course, there must be a lot of preparatory work at the beginning, but at least in terms of materials, Gao Yu would never be lacking. The refining materials that Yang Chen obtained from various channels, including the second city lord of the monster race, were enough to support the refining of the dragon horn flying sword. However, to completely refine the dragon horn, not only materials were needed, but special refining techniques were also needed. In the early stage, Gao Yu must also go through a long period of warming the dragon horn. In order to have a comprehensive and intuitive understanding of the dragon horn, every corner and every crevice must be fully understood. Next, it was necessary to carry out a detailed design to meet Gao Yu's usage habits and aesthetic requirements, and so on. Finally, when everything was ready, the refining could be started. The preparatory work alone was no less than 10 years, especially the warming of the dragon horn, which was particularly important. It was related to Gao Yu's control of the finished flying sword, and it could not be sloppy. And this process would take 7 to 8 years. The real start of refining, even with the help of Wang Yong, was a long process. The material of the dragon horn was so advanced that it took a huge amount of spiritual power and hard work to change even a little bit of shape. Fortunately, Yang Chen's refining technique was simply the refining technique of the life source flying sword. From the beginning, it was the tempering of the life source flying sword, so although it took a very long time after success, it would be the life source flying sword. In addition, the whole process was personally refined by himself. The effect was even more powerful than the method of Gong Sunling. At least in terms of the control of the flying sword, it was far beyond. From preparation to refining, without 100 years, there was no need to consider it at all. However, the refining process did not hinder Gao Yu's cultivation. On the contrary, refining the dragon horn flying sword, because of the huge consumption of spiritual power, would promote Gao Yu's cultivation to continue to improve, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Here, the life source magic weapons of his master and senior sister were arranged. On the other hand, Yang Chen had to analyze the source of this rumor with the head of the palace again. Obviously, the purpose of the rumor was to create a gap between Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island, and then destroy the cooperation between the two sides. But this time the rumor was not entirely a rumor. At least the fact that Li Junyu, the elder of the Green Jade Immortal Island, brought a bunch of masters of the Green Jade Immortal Island to besiege Yangchen did exist, but the result was not like the rumor. If it weren't for the Chunyang Palace high-level officials who had always had a blind confidence in Yangchen, and if it weren't for the timely communication of the Lord of Tantai, even admitting that he could not restrain some people in the sect, allowing Li Junyu to take advantage of the loopholes, maybe the cracks would have formed. If Yangchen appeared a little later, Wang Yong might find the Green Jade Immortal Island. At that time, since Li Junyu would make a move on Yangchen in the future, maybe there would be another master who would make a move on Wang Yong. If this was the case, the result would probably be completely different, and it was possible that the two sides would turn against each other. The source of the rumor and the possible dark hand almost all pointed to the Taishanmen. Just say that the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Chunyang Palace would turn against each other, who would get the greatest benefit? The Taishanmen's strength was now greatly damaged, and they would delay the rise of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect at all costs. If they succeeded, this would be the best ending. Moreover, the collusion between Li Junyu and the Taishanmen was almost known by everyone. Combining these 2 points, it was almost certain that the Taishanmen were at least 90% suspicious. But no one could grasp the weakness of the Taishanmen. Everyone could only doubt, but they couldn't do anything. They could only secretly target the greatest heaven sect, but on the surface, they still maintained the atmosphere of sincere cooperation between everyone and the Tao sections. The meaning of the head of the palace was to know if there was any way to cheat the Taishanmen in the near future, otherwise, he really couldn't swallow it. Chapter 698. The other party's rumor was to take advantage of the time difference. As long as Yangchen appeared a little later, it might lead to a catastrophe. If it was successful, Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island would turn against each other. At that time, maybe the Blue Cloud sect would also be involved. If it failed, it was just a rumor, and the other party would not lose anything. It was completely guided by the situation, but it made the two major sects to deal with it, and they were almost doomed. This breath, the head of the palace could not swallow it in any case. The Taishanmen want to expand their strength. They have established the Hall of Eccentrics and are planning to recruit monster race disciples on a large scale. Yangchen said, almost without thinking about it, since they spread rumors, we will also spread rumors, saying that the Taishanmen are going to recruit devils and monsters to supplement their strength. Is this useful? The head of the palace frowned, and it seemed that Yang Chen's method of using rumors against rumors was not effective. It's useless. Yang Chen replied decisively, but it can delay the time for the Taishanmen to recruit the monster race, and they also need to spend a lot of effort to reassure the other Tao sects. Just delay? Are there any other benefits? The head of the palace was very greedy and wanted better result. The Taishanmen will spend a lot of effort and will give us more time to plot the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave. Yang Chen's heart moved and explained, but he thought of another plan in his heart. It seemed to be a good way to delay the rise of the other party and buy time for himself. At least the head of the palace had begun to be tempted. Anyway, just like the Taishanmen, he just released a few rumors which cost nothing. If he succeeded, not only would he achieve his goal, but he could also disgust the other party. If he failed, he did not pay anything, so it didn't matter. Moreover, once the rumors were believed, in fact, the head of the palace firmly believed that this rumor would be believed, because at present, the Taishanmen were planning to recruit the monster race, and they had already begun to implement it. It was just that they did not dare to do it on a large scale at first, and first used a small number of monster race to test. At that time, the scene of the various Taoist sects demanding an explanation from the Taishanmen would definitely be very entertaining. The head of the palace could not wait to see the scene of the Foreign Affairs Hall Master of the Taishanmen and even the sect master coming forward to explain to everyone. As Yang Chen said, the Taishaman would definitely carry out the method of recruiting the demon clan. Then, they were really making preparations for the Chunyang Palace. After the Taishaman tried their best to let everyone accept the demon race as a disciple, they found that it did not take long for Chunyang Palace to accept a demon race from the Banyan Tree Cave. His strength skyrocketed, and no one knew what would happen next. "Palace Master, I have an idea, but I don't know if I should say it." Yang Chen deliberated for a while and finally said it. "Speak your mind." The head of the palace had almost 100% trust in Yang Chen. There was no such thing as whether he should say it or not. Recruiting the monster race, at the beginning, there will definitely be a backlash from the Dao sects. The sect cannot be considered first. The Hall of Eccentrics will first maintain the current scale, and when most of the sect begins to recruit the monster race, it will not be too late to follow up. Yang Chen thought about it a little and slowly said, "Before that, the sect can consider thinking about some ways among the mortals." The head of the palace suddenly became interested and asked curiously, "What's the good way?" Expanding the strength of the sect was now the main concern of the head of the palace. The development of the Chunyang Palace to the present had exceeded the limits of the predecessors, and even the era of the ancestors had not reached its glory. As the head of the Chunyang Palace, the head of the palace was naturally indispensable. However, the head of the palace now had only two thoughts. One was that he could also cross the tribulation to reach the Deshang stage. This point, when Yang Chen gave Wan Qian to the head of the palace as a Dao companion, there was a possibility. Now the head of the palace could already feel that his cultivation base was greatly improved. He believed that within 20 years, it would not be a problem to break through the middle Yuanying stage and enter the late Yuanying stage. According to this cultivation speed, within 200 years at most, the head of the palace could also enter the peak Yuanying stage and even the stage of crossing the tribulation to reach the Deshang stage. This idea, as long as he spent enough time, could always be realized. The second idea was to continue to strengthen the Chunyang Palace. Since becoming the head of the palace had always thought about this goal, but it always backfired. Before Yang Chen joined the Chunyang Palace, the situation of the Chunyang Palace could not be said to be deteriorating, but it was barely supported. In particular, the head of the palace was also affected by Liang Xiaoming. He had also intended to move closer to the Taishaman. After finally discovering the plot of the Taishaman in time, he hated the Taishaman even more. The best way to retaliate against the Taishaman was to make the Chunyang Palace stronger and stronger under his own hands. With such an opportunity, the head of the palace certainly would not let it go, and immediately asked with great interest, "Every time we recruit disciples, the sect opens the mountain gate and lets the mortals come to accept the test of the spiritual root. Those who meet the conditions can join the sect." Yang Chen was not polite at all and quickly explained, "If you want to cultivate, you have to take the initiative to come. This is also a small test. Every sect does this." The head of the palace nodded. Everyone did this, and so did the Chunyang Palace. There was nothing to say. The heart of the Tao is not strong, and people who don't even want to take the initiative to enter the mountain gate, of course, have no chance to join the sect. What if in another way, the sect takes the initiative to go to the mortal world to find a disciple who matches the spiritual root? Yang Chen directly raised his own question, and then waited for the reaction of the head of the palace. How can that be? Could it be that we still have to ask them to cultivate? The head of the palace, as Yang Chen thought, shook his head directly. No, absolutely not. The Dao sects were high and aloof, and it had always been the mortals who looked up to the Dao sections. When did the Dao sects ever condescend to cater to the mortals? This was also the common voice of all the Dao sects at present. To take the initiative to find a guy with the right qualifications, wouldn't that be too shameful? Since all the Dao sects do this, if Chunyang Palace is the first to take the initiative to recruit disciples, will it have a better chance to find a disciple with good qualifications than other sect? Yang Chun looked at the head of the palace and said again, or we don't have to worship the sect once a year. Looking for it any time and anywhere, maybe there will be more opportunities? This was a real benefit. Of course, it was better to take the initiative to find a disciple than to wait for those disciples to come to the sect. It was just that no sect could put down its pride. According to what Yang Chun said, it was almost certain that more disciples with good qualifications could be found. The head of the palace could not help but fall into contemplation.